The Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Tuesday, May 6, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, two investigators working to bring you the truth, to look beyond the fog of misinformation, distractions, disinformation, to bring you what you need to know in these very perilous times. I want to welcome new listeners from coast to coast and from Europe and all over the world. I want to thank you for checking in with us. Folks, we broadcast live each and every weeknight, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the Internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. And I want to draw your attention right now on HomelandSecurityUS.com, our home base. We're going to be joined here in a few minutes by attorney Billy Bear. Billy Bear from New Hampshire. He's not just an attorney, he's a friend of the show, he's a friend of mine, he's a very well-respected man, a very well-respected individual. He's also a parent. He's a parent of a 14-year-old girl, middle school. Now, what I did was I put up a link, just a paragraph, a still image of my good friend, Mr. Billy Bear, in handcuffs. And there's a link to a 10-minute video, YouTube video, underneath this picture. The folks listening to this broadcast, would urge everyone to take a look at that video, and we'll explain, as when Billy comes on, we'll explain as to what is taking place following his appearance. And following tonight's broadcast, I'll be doing a report on this as well, because this is a big deal, folks. It's a really big deal. But I want to thank each and every one of you, both Joe and I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. By the way, we've been getting reports that some people, and only some people, and we haven't quite figured out the rhyme or reason behind this, if there is any, can only download 11 minutes of our show from last Friday or from other times. We're working on this. I don't know where you're downloading it from. Some say BTR, others say other locations. I don't know what browsers you're using. Some say Explorer, some say Firefox, some say Safari. Folks, we're working on this. And we're also working to bring you, the listeners, and this will be coming out very soon, an app.
Yeah, this is exciting. We had a few gentlemen help us, and they put together and are completing a app for iPhones, Androids, any smart device, and it will be free of charge. Not only will you be able to listen to live shows, there'll be archives, there'll be a whole bunch of different segments in the app, and the ball has already been rolling. It's almost complete, and it should be ready to launch soon.
I've seen the prototype of this. It's quite exciting if you listen to this show by dialing in or on your iPad or whatever type of player you have. This will make your life a lot easier, and that's what we're all about. It's about bringing you the truth easily without you having to jump through hoops. But once again, folks, please, we're working on that 11 minutes. I don't know. Again, I don't know what is going on with that. It's not on our end. I can tell you that. It's not on our end.
I told you guys I went and downloaded it from a few separate computers, a few separate ways. I went and used a phone and another computer, downloading it straight from Blog Talk and also on my phone, and I had no issues, so I don't know what could be the problem. I don't know why it's so selective with the problem.
And I just, for those paying attention, I just find that from last Friday, the number 11 minutes, I find that to be a rather odd number, an odd place for the audio to stop. And those who are well aware of occult numerology will understand what I mean by that. So it's odd indeed. But tomorrow, folks, Bill Salas, author of Psalm 83 War, Israelistine, and he's going to be joining us. And Thursday, Nathan Leal will be joining us. So we've got a very good, nicely packed week. And, of course, tonight, after Billy Bear, the second hour will be Mr. understand Dale. So, but with what happened with Billy Bear, and I'm going to let him really get into it, but it disturbs me a great deal, by the way, folks, to see a friend. Someone who I've known for quite a while. I know him to be a good person. I know him to be a man of great morals and great integrity. To see him being taken out of a school, out of a library, of a school board.
And this should be a warning to everybody who has kids in public schools. Take them out if you can possibly. Remove them from these sick, infested places, as they are not nourishing children with education or anything of substance. Instead, they are giving them, as my father called this book, smut. They are giving them Common Core. They are giving them anti-God, and that is all.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's sad that we have to do that. Now, Mr. Bear had stood up for what was right. I mean, he's got his children in the school system. You know, it's we should not have to do that. I understand why we do, but we shouldn't have to do that. But you know what? We're going to let Mr. Bear, Billy Bear, tell his story. Billy, thanks for coming on in such short notice. I was really just upset to the moon today when I saw that video.
Yeah, hey, Joe, Doug, how you guys doing?
Very well. I'm glad to have you on. It gave you a little bit of an introduction. You moved from Jersey to, you're an attorney, moved from Jersey to New Hampshire. You're raising your family up there. You've got children. You got a 13 or 14-year-old daughter in middle school. And
my son just turned 16.
You got a beautiful family, by the way. Folks, this gentleman, and when I say this, and I mean this, he's a friend. He's a friend of this program. He's a good, solid man, good moral character. So keep that in the back of your mind. Also, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Right now, all I have is just a one-sentence paragraph and a link to the YouTube video that is owned by or controlled by Mr. Bear.
And before we, I just want to say this for maybe the people who haven't seen it and aren't going to watch it now during the interview. The first question your wife asked was, you know, what did he do? He had to be belligerent, arrogant. There had to be something that was over the top that he did.
Yeah, that was my wife, and I told her, or when I said told her, in discussion, I said, sit down and watch it, and we'll watch this together. And by the time it was over, she was just absolutely in disbelief. But with that, Mr. Bear, welcome to the program, and tell us what the heck's going on here.
I don't know. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I've never been arrested before, and I was absolutely shocked to move to New Hampshire. I thought I was coming to someplace better. I guess in some ways it still is, but I don't know. It's a shocking situation for me. Basically, do you want me to tell a brief rundown of the story? I don't want to take too much time going through these details, but how do you want to do it?
Billy, start from right from the beginning to the present. Give us a full scoop.
All right, I'm going to make it as outline form as possible, and then we'll fill it in. Basically, what happened is this was last Wednesday. A friend came over, stopped by, talking to my daughter Marina. She's in 9th grade in Guilford High School, public high school in Guilford, New Hampshire. We've lived here for 9 months so far. He was just talking to her about school assignments and stuff, and she said she had this assignment for this book. So he was like, "Oh, where's the book?" And she handed him the book, and he literally just cracked the book open, and it fell to page 313, and he sat down and he just started looking at it, and I was doing some other things on the computer and not paying attention. Didn't really think of anything of it. She had just gotten that book like a couple of days prior. And he was just astonished and increasingly astonished as he was reading the text, and he was like, I can't. He was flabbergasted. He's a 38-year-old man, 2 children, and he just couldn't believe what he was seeing. And he put it in front of me, and I looked at it, and I had the same reaction. I was shocked. I mean, you guys have seen the text, correct?
Yes, sir, and we're going to be putting the text up after the show.
Okay, so you've seen the text, so you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this and the book is 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult, and a New York Times bestselling author. She actually lives in New Hampshire. Anyway, so this was my reaction. Then my wife was like, "What are you guys doing?" Handed her the book. She was literally speechless. She was just stunned what she was reading in this book, on this page in particular, because she didn't go any further, and I didn't either at that point. And it was the most, there was, just for, so we know, there were no notices went out, there was nothing. I didn't even know she had the book. It's, the trimester, so they go over pretty quickly. Like I said, she only had the book 2 or 3 days at that point. It was given to her that Monday. And it was the most graphic sexual language I've ever seen in my life. It reads like the transcript of a pornography movie, a XXX porno movie. It's just stunning. It's like, I don't know how much more graphic you can get. And this was in this book that my daughter is assigned required reading for 9th grade honors class in Guilford High School. And so anyways, I emailed the principal either that night or the next morning, told him I wanted to meet with him, with my wife and my daughter, and he emailed me back. Well, actually left a voicemail several hours later, said he couldn't make it on Friday for whatever reason. And at that point I decided, all right, well, this is beyond just a discussion with the principal about what I consider the inappropriateness of the book and the lack of notice that this was going to be read. And I decided to make it a public issue and have other parents be aware of what this book contained. Basically, I didn't have any email lists of parents. I know in the schools we were in New Jersey, it was common to have a directory of all the students and all the parents and all the emails and addresses and phone numbers that everybody had access to. That was given out at the beginning of the year so everybody could interact with everybody else. Here, as far as I know I don't have any lists such as that. And so it was very difficult to reach people. So we reached a few people we knew, and then we just tried to get the word out about what was in this book that was supposedly being read on and off for 7 years in this high school. And it was an amazing experience to see what my daughter was reading. And so I was on a few radio shows, and there were newspaper articles. I saw that it was really gaining people's attention. I had newspaper editors of the adjoining town, who actually was the mayor of the town as well, Laconia. He was quoted in one of the articles saying something to the effect of, we're not printing the article, and I don't think 99% of papers in the United States would print this, and then he changed it to probably 100%, which speaks to the content of what was in this book. And basically the school's position is, well, it has to do with different themes and this and that, and kind of more like, part of the totality of the literature. There's, it's okay and it's not glorified, and it's basically, I don't have the text in front of me now, but maybe you guys could read some of it, however you feel. But it's unbelievable. And then when I ended up, the principal emailed me yesterday. I can't believe it was only yesterday. Well, actually, I guess it was yesterday, Monday morning, saying that he'd be glad to meet with me whenever I want. Now, this is after I've been on the radio, on local television, on local radio. It's been all over, literally front page news all over the area, front page news in the Union Leader, which is the main newspaper in the entire state of New Hampshire. So, it obviously was getting a lot of play. So now he reaches out to me and says, we should get together, and even if not for this, almost like, let's get together for beer one day, that type of thing. He's like, maybe I'll run into you at a track meet, both of my children on the track team. Anyway, so I said, I'll take you up on it. Let's get together 1 o'clock. Met with him at 1 o'clock privately, and we discussed it, and he basically said he understood my concern. They made it was an oversight that they did not send out notice with the book. That's what they do usually. Not usually, that's what they do as a matter of routine. And this year it was an oversight. They didn't do it. My bad. We didn't do it. I'm very sorry. If you have an objection to the book, your daughter doesn't have to read it. We'll come up with an alternative. And I made some suggestions in addition just about the contrast between opting in and opting out. One is obviously, you have to make an affirmative decision to actually read the book, and the default position is that you don't read it, whereas the other way, which is what they typically do, is that if you don't do anything, you have to object in order to not read it. So, it's pretty common. Like I said, listen, my son goes to the zoo with the school, and we have to opt in. If we don't sign the paper, he doesn't go to the zoo. I said the same should be afforded, something like this, and he kind of agreed. And actually, a few minutes later, he called me back and said that he spoke to the superintendent, and they agreed that that's probably the policy they would take at this point, and see how great it is that we can all get along and all of this. And I'm sorry for the oversight and everything else, but at this point, I asked him if he would. What I wanted was my position essentially was that if it's good enough for my daughter to read and then discuss and then have 19 pages of detailed questions as part of the discussion with the teacher in the class, then it should be okay for somebody at the school board meeting, which was actually yesterday in the evening, that they should read the text, have people aware of, it'll take a minute or so. You see what the text is in one page. People be aware of what is in the text and what the school board and the administration in the Guilford High School is requiring of ninth grade students who have to read this book. And after going back and forth with him and back and forth discussing reading it, he basically made it clear that he would not read it, that he didn't think anybody else would read it, and that he was uncomfortable reading it.
And Billy, Billy, I'm going to interrupt you here, folks. Let me give you just a little taste. I'm uncomfortable reading this. If you have any young children who are impressionable that you want to get out of the room, it's not going to be too bad. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read the entire page on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. We'll have this up as well. But just to give you an idea of what Billy Bear wanted to be put in the record, here's a paragraph. Okay, here's a paragraph. They were on the floor of the living room, and they were nearly naked. And Josie could taste beer on Matt's breath, but she must have tasted like that too. They'd both drunk a few at Drew's, not enough to get wasted, just buzzed, enough so that Matt's hands seemed to be all over her at once, so that his skin set fire to hers. I'll continue just a little bit more here. And folks, this is not even close to the bad part. She'd been floating along pleasantly in the haze of the familiar. Yes, Matt had kissed her, one short one, the no longer hungry kiss, as his hand worked open the clasp on her bra. She lay lazy, spread beneath him like a feast, as he pulled off her jeans. But then, instead of doing what usually came next, Matt reared over her again. He kissed her so hard that it hurt. She said, pushing at him. Relax, Matt murmured, and then he sank his teeth into her shoulder. He pinned her hands over her head and ground his hips against hers. Now, it gets worse, exponentially worse from there, folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably 15% is as graphic as it gets. I would say that's the best part of that.
That's about the only thing I can read.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was, like I said, I've never read anything like that. And so anyway, the principal said that he didn't feel comfortable reading it. And, of course, my point was, well, if you don't feel comfortable reading it, a 45, 50-year-old man, whatever you are, how do you expect my daughter to be okay reading this? And then discussing it and discussing her feelings about it and discussing 19 pages of questions about it, And he basically was apologetic about giving no notice, and they're going to fix that. And she doesn't have to read it if she doesn't want to. And isn't it great that we could have this kind of conversation? And this is what it's all about. And I'm quoting him, pretty much paraphrasing that. He said that his most concern is for my children, and that's what the man said. And I don't know him. I don't know him personally. I'm not looking to impugn him, but I'm telling you what happened. And anyway, it was obvious that I was going to the board meeting and that I intended to have them read that. And I went to the board meeting, and I was driving there with my children, and my wife was going to meet us there. And my daughter gave me what was the updated notice, which was that she was given in school. And the notice was effectively no notice. I don't have it in front of me. I wish I did. I left it at the meeting last night when I was arrested. But anyway, the notice, basically the indication of what the content of page 313 and the book in general, I should really say, was that it was something to the effect of that it depicted some unhealthy relationships or something like that. That was about as specific as it got. So, I mean, I could see that I would have received that, and if I didn't know anything, I probably wouldn't have had a problem signing off on that. I mean, who doesn't have unhealthy relationships? I don't know anybody that has really healthy relationships now that I'm thinking about it. You know, so the idea that there's going to be depictions of unhealthy relationships, whether it's with adults or teens or whatever it might be, it's really not a big deal. You know, so I mean, I could see that I could have signed that. And when I realized that that was the notice that they gave for people to sign, to opt out on with is just amazing. And this is after 4 or 5 days that they were, no pun intended, on notice that there was a big problem coming here, and that there was a parent who had a big problem with the text that they were being assigned, and this is as specific as they would get. So I went to the meeting, and I sat down, and interestingly, there were maybe 25 people there, but there was another event going on that had to do with children, some of the elementary school children presenting some projects or something. Actually, one of them was very interesting. It was all about government intrusion. I thought that was pretty, and the TSA and the Patriot Act and that type of stuff. Very interesting. And the kid's position was, this stuff is all unconstitutional and it's terrible. So that was kind of interesting as an entree into the evening. So anyway, what happened was we walked in, and the room was pretty full, a small room maybe with a capacity of 50 or so, probably not even, maybe 40. And we walked in, and interestingly, there were 2 or 3 seats available in the second row, and every other seat was taken, even the ones behind it. And I didn't really think much of it, and there was a police officer standing maybe 10 feet with access to those seats, and we sat down. And now looking back on it, those seats might have been reserved for me and my family, because why would every seat fill in except ones in the front, 2 in the second row? It just seems strange.
Yeah, listen carefully to what No, that's fine. Listen carefully to what Billy Bear is saying here, folks, because the devil in this case is definitely in the details. Go ahead, sir.
So anyway, that's pure speculation, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. I really wasn't thinking like that. But now looking back on it, it's kind of curious that the police officer had direct access to where we were. He didn't have to climb through a bunch of rows. Anyway, so we sat down and heard some of the presentations from the other students, like I referenced, and the teacher, the superintendent, made reference to the notice that was sent out, which I just mentioned, which was no notice at all. Very casually, he mentioned it, that he pretty much signed off on it. And Marina's, that's my daughter's English teacher's signature was on the bottom, and the other English teacher, whose class is reading that book as well, was on the bottom. And then it was time for the public discussion part. But the public discussion, the chair of the school board made crystal clear, was not for interaction, was not for discussion, was not for questions and answers or anything resembling that. It was simply for people to voice their opinions and not ask any questions, obviously no follow-ups, so there's no questions, and expect no responses from anybody on the board. So it was just tell your concerns and you sit down. And then she went on to say that there was going to be a 2-minute time limit, which I found out is either has never taken place or rarely has taken place, and she attributed to the fact that there were, I shouldn't say fact, to the premise that there were so many people there that we wouldn't have enough time to have everybody be heard. Well, the fact is about half the people left after the student presentations, and we were left with maybe, other than the school board people and the police officer and the others, maybe 15 or 18 people, it's under 20 people there, who actually even potentially would ask a question. So anyway, so she went on to make it very clear that was the policy, and she said, are there any questions or comments? Are there any comments, and who would like to speak? And then it was like the movie with Ferris Bueller, if you're familiar with that, where the teacher says, anyone, looking for somebody to answer a question, and nobody had an answer. It was the same kind of thing. I waited, I'd say, I haven't timed it on the video, but I probably waited, 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, probably not 15, probably somewhere around 10 seconds for somebody else to stand up to speak. And there was silence. I'm like, all right, well, clearly not a lot of people want to speak. And she even said, does anybody want to speak? Kind of like nobody has anything to say. So, of course, I got up at that point, and I focused in on that no notice that was just issued. And I brought it up to the superintendent, who already took ownership of it, and I put it in front of him, and I said, would you read this? And then the chair read it. I guess you saw it was on the video. It probably almost sounds like word for word what happened, right?
Well, yes. However, you're speaking to an audience that has not seen the video yet, so
right. Of course, I'm just saying from your, it's how accurate does this sound?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So anyway, so I walked up there and I handed the superintendent. I said, would you read this? And she looked at the chair, and the chair said, we said there's no questions. You can't ask a question. You could just make a statement. I said, so I walked back to him. I said, fine, and I put it down in front of him. I said, read this, like, as a statement, not as a question. You know, obviously, and they were like, Mr. Baer, we are not, you have 2 minutes, say what you want, and we're not going to answer any questions. We're not going to read it. So then I made a point about the no notice, and then I made a point about the text, and I said, we're all here. I want somebody to read this. Please read this. Would you read this? Would you read this? Why is nobody reading it? It's good enough for my daughter to read, and you refuse to read this. Let's know what we're talking about here. Let the people in the audience know, and let people see what this is all about. They refused to do it. Then my time was up, and the person behind me, who's actually my children's track coach, made sure that he had his egg timer going, and he said, time's up. And I went, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds over, and basically disputing the procedure of cutting everybody off after 2 minutes. And I sat down, and then the track coach stood up, I believe, right after that, and he went into this 2-minute dissertation about how great the book was and how his whole family's read it. And it was great that his children talked about it, his wife talked about it, and they couldn't wait for the other guy, the other person in the family to get the book and all this type of stuff. And, did it make them feel uncomfortable? My daughters feel uncomfortable? Yeah, it probably did. I'm glad it did. And, it was a great thing. And basically referring to these people, meaning me and I guess my family, who I know this guy. I mean, I consider him half a friend, and my children know him very well as a track coach. And he's basically saying that I want to take their right away to read the book. And I'm like, and I interrupted, which wasn't quite an interruption because he only had literally 1 second to go before his time was up. And I said, that's ridiculous. I didn't suggest at all to censor it or to ban any books or to burn any books or anything. I just don't want the school ramming this stuff down my daughter's throat, especially without any notice, and we got into that whole thing. And I, in effect, got gavelled by the chair, and she kept telling me, in effect, sit down and shut up. Your time is up. You had your 2 minutes. You're out of order. And I was like, yeah, I'm out of order. And she's like, show some respect for the other people who want to speak. And I'm like, you talk about showing respect. How about you respecting my family and my daughter and, whatever I said. And then at that point, it was maybe, 20 seconds. Like I said, I didn't time it off the video, but it was, 20 or 25 seconds or something, probably into my whatever rebuttal or my.
Yeah, I counted 18 seconds, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I'm saying, all right, so I said it was 20 or so. It seemed something like that. So anyway, and then you could see on the video, the superintendent looks at the police officer clearly, gives him like a sign, and the cop comes over to me and he says, "Sir, you have to leave. Or you need to leave. You're out of order. This and that." I'm like, "I'm out of order. This is ridiculous. I can't even speak here." And also, the chair made the point that I asked her during my first legitimate 2 minutes, you might say. I said, "Well, what is the proper forum to discuss this? To actually have a discussion?" And she said, "Well, contact the principal or the superintendent and go meet with them privately." So basically, nothing could take place publicly. There's no public discussion. You could voice an opinion. You're limited to 2 minutes. There was no reason to have a limit like that because there weren't that many people there. And you want to have a discussion, go talk to the principal, which I already did, and that was my initial thing to do, was to contact the principal. So I kind of followed the rules, so to speak. And, maybe no cameras, no public, nothing. And they'd listen to you, and they'd nod their head, and they'd say, "Okay, maybe we'll do this. Thank you very much. We all have to work together, and we love your children. They're great," which is basically what I was told. So there's no opportunity for actual open public discussion with the people who are making these decisions. So anyway, so that the lieutenant who was standing there, 10 feet away from me for the past 45 minutes or whatever. Said, you have to leave. I said, okay. I also said something to the chair. I said, what are you going to do, have me arrested? And obviously they were. And obviously it was something they intended. And so I said, I guess, he said, well, you have to leave. And he said, I'm going to arrest you. I said, well, I guess you're going to have to arrest me. And he arrested me. And then he accused me of resisting, which was absurd. I told him my left arm was messed up for months. I actually explained what was wrong with it to him. And the lieutenant was very nervous, which was obvious. You could hear it in his voice, and I even make a comment. Was you there? I guess, did you see you saw the 10-minute video?
Yeah, I saw every bit of footage that was out there,
okay,
and that officer did not look like he was comfortable.
No, well, it's just almost humorous. I mean, Doug, you know me fairly well. It was almost funny, just my interaction with him. But anyway, so he arrested me and dragged me outside, basically, and my children are following, and my friends who had the cameras following, and asking him if I'm okay, and, watch his arm and this and that. And the arm, it's a real thing. I've been terrible for like 3 or 4 months from a skiing accident, or incident, I should say. And anyway, he took me in, ran me through the system, and I sat there for 2 hours, and he filled out all the paperwork, and I was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct.
Well,
interesting. Yeah,
you did leave one part out there, Billy. During that time, and I've got to tell you, look, I've got a neck injury and my shoulders bilaterally. Okay, so I had an incident last year.
I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and it's my left arm has been. I basically haven't used it in 3 months, and I've only started to come out of it in the past 2 weeks. And now I have my arm twisted behind my back.
Well, yeah, and it's incredibly painful having experienced this about a year ago myself with the arms behind the back and the handcuffs. But the thing is, when you were attempting to protect your arm, and this is clear on the video, don't resist. You're resisting arrest. Don't resist arrest.
Right.
Don't resist arrest.
Right.
He was
referring to my arm.
Yeah, and
on the video you couldn't even tell that you were even hardly moving or trying to move or anything.
Right. What's up with him telling you not to resist?
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, it's the way they have some basis for charging you with resisting arrest. I worked in the district attorney's office in the Bronx for 2 years. Actually, while I wasn't working there as an attorney, I was working there as preparing felony cases for trials, murder cases, kidnapping cases, armed robbery cases in the Bronx and New York City for 2 years. And, you charge somebody with everything you can charge them with, and then you negotiate with it. That's what they do. And that's probably what he was doing. That's why I made it clear that I wasn't resisting arrest.
Man, I'll tell you, and folks, you've got to see this video. And by the way, for those just joining us on our newsmaker line, attorney, Mr. Billy Bear from New Hampshire, arrested yesterday at a school board meeting for speaking. Well, the official charge is disorderly conduct, but the real charge
violating the 2-minute rule.
Yeah, go figure, folks. And this all centers around a book, 19 minutes. Well, the lack of parental notification of the assignment of a book called 19 Minutes, which is absolutely it's Common Core, by the way, Mr. Bear. It's part of Common Core, but so you were
Is it actually like officially part of Common Core at this point?
Well, Common Core is in 46 states, and they have standards that they've set up for mathematics, language, and English. It is in New Hampshire, and it is the current mechanism by which the New Hampshire schools do teach.
It's authorized under Common Core, I suppose.
Right. Well, the only reason I'm saying that is because I know that they've been using it in certain years since 2007. So I don't. Maybe it was incorporated into it. I don't know how it would work with that, but it's obviously acceptable if that's the standard we're using now. It's obviously acceptable into Common Core. I wouldn't think that it originated through that mechanism, but it's almost without distinction. But so that's what happened. I was arrested and booked, and the whole works. You know, I tried to be nice to the cop, and
well, and you were very nice. You were very nice to him, and you can hear it on the video. But by the way, your arraignment is on June 17th. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this, I'm going to suggest something here. We need to stand behind Mr. Baer. We need to make a statement. We need to all get together and explain to the school district exactly how we feel as Americans, as Christians, as humans, as people who care about others. This is not to be tolerated. Go ahead, sir.
Well, you know, there's a few issues going on here. Obviously, one issue is the text itself, and specifically, and I haven't read other parts of the book. I've seen references to other parts. I know some of the themes involved. But let's just take page 313, because as far as I'm concerned, that in and of itself is enough. So that's part of the issue, that there's that type of text, that type, whatever you want to say about the themes and how it's portrayed, and that they don't say it's glorified or anything, that's kind of beside the point. And like I asked some people involved with this, you know, once my daughter reads it, how does she unread it? Do you have some kind of prescription for that? You know, and that's one aspect. The other aspect of this is the lack of notice. The third aspect, which is kind of the same as the second, is that the notice that has been given, I'm sure, and that certainly was given on Monday, even after everything came to light, was ridiculously insufficient. I mean, it was insultingly insufficient that they considered this, quote, notice of what was in that book that could be objectionable. And then the real disturbing issues are really one and the same. The authoritarianism of the police force, of the school boards, of the governments in general, of the state in general, I mean state generally. It's just absolutely stunning that a chair of a school board in a town of 7,000 people has the authority to have me arrested because I exceeded her arbitrary 2-minute rule. It just blows my mind that this is what it's come to, and that the superintendent raises, gives the cop the high sign, and they take me away in handcuffs is absolutely stunning. It's disgusting what's going on here. That, you know, people are, it can't happen to me. Yeah, it can happen to you. You open your mouth, and they don't want you to open your mouth, and it's going to happen to you. So today it's me, tomorrow it's you. It will happen, and it's happening more frequently all over the country, whether it's a kid who gets expelled or whatever it is, an 8-year-old kid or whatever the kid's age is, for chewing a Pop-Tart into the shape of what could be a gun or whatever we might be. What's going on is insanity, and a lot of it is in the school system. And another thing, these people who are running the schools they give lip service to the accountability, but they want to be accountable to nobody. They want to dictate how they're going to run things, and that's just the way they want to do it. And they appease the parents, and the parents are stupid enough and complacent enough to just go along with it, and corrupt enough in terms of their understanding of what's really going on in this country. Go along with it, and they think that's fine. And then very briefly.
I just have to commend you because you are not going along with it. You stood up, you stood your ground, you asked them or instructed them to read from the very book your daughter, 14 years old, is being or had been mandated to read from. They wouldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And by the way, folks, when you do, if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com and you click on that video link, be sure to click on other videos and watch the second video. It's of Mr. Baer's daughter. Watch how eloquent she is when she stands up and for, I think, maybe 10, 15 seconds makes a statement in defense of her father. I mean, that made me proud for you, sir.
Right.
Wow.
You know, and I appreciate those comments. And Doug, before I lose my train of thought here, the last point is that there is no First Amendment law. The Second Amendment is being taken away. We see that in New Jersey, the New Jersey Drake case on concealed carry. The Supreme Court denied cert. They don't even want to hear the case. It's clear that the New Jersey Second Amendment laws are inconsistent with McDonald and Heller. It's obvious they are, and the Supreme Court refuses to listen to the case. Unbelievable. The Second Amendment's in trouble. The First Amendment's basically done. The Fourth Amendment, as far as unreasonable search and seizure, is basically hollowed. This is what's going on. But the First Amendment is, for all intents and purposes, it's a joke. It's become a joke. And when people say, "Oh, well, I can't say what I want in my corporate boardroom, and that's my First Amendment," no, it's not your First Amendment right. It has to do with the infringement of free speech rights by the government, and this is the government. They've proven it, that we know they're agents of the government. It's a state school. It's as simple as that. It's a function of the government, and when somebody could raise their hand and have you arrested, that's government. And the First Amendment is being obliterated. We saw what happened in Nevada. Regardless of what you think about that issue, and Doug and I have discussed this, the issue is not clear. There are a lot of ambiguities, and there's a lot of things of concern that went on there. But one thing which is outrageous is that they set up First Amendment zones a mile or something from where what was going on, and they basically had pens there with a sign that said free speech zone, or First Amendment zone, or whatever, to pen people up and let them talk to each other, like a bunch of chickens running around. This is what's going on, and the same thing what happened in that school board meeting. Basically, the effect of what they did was they just obliterated the First Amendment. There's time, place, and manner restrictions, and that was the time, the place, and the manner to have this discussion, and they refused to let it happen.
That's it. Billy, I'll tell you what. I know you were up early this morning with the media, and I know that you've been very busy today. I want to thank you for spending your time tonight to give us your firsthand account. We're not going to let this drop, by the way. If Sue Allen, Kurt Weber, Karen Thurston, Ray Mello Andrews, and Jack Landau, all members of the school board, really, since they didn't want to hear you yesterday, perhaps they can hear from us, from our audience this week.
Well, another couple of points. Peter Sawyer is the principal, and Kent Hemingway is the superintendent. And interestingly, my daughter told me tonight, I haven't confirmed it, and I'm sure she's accurate, but just as a caveat, she told me a little while ago that she was discussing this with a friend in some kind of guidance class or something like that. And the teacher who was present said that the teachers were given instructions from the administration not to discuss this issue, not to discuss anything about it, and not to let the kids in the school discuss this. So they were basically muzzled in the school, and they were instructed to not discuss this. So there you go. And by the way, as you saw in the chair made a point that people who were present, this was going to be a civics lesson. So that's what's going on here. This is reality.
Explain that, Billy. I was a little unclear about that. What was going to be a
My
civics
reference
lesson?
to the civics lesson? Yeah. Prior to that, obviously in the context it made sense. On the videotape, it didn't quite make as much sense. And I'll explain it very briefly. Like I told you, there were a bunch of students. I think they were middle school students who were doing presentations, and there were students in the audience who were watching what was going on. And I believe the chair, or maybe it was the superintendent, but I think it was the chair, who referenced their presence as they were going to have the opportunity to watch what really happens in government or something. I don't know if those are the exact words, but anyway, they said this will be a civics lesson to you for you to watch this tonight. And that was my reference when I was saying that this is the civics lesson that they taught, that there is no First Amendment, and that the school basically does what they want, and they dictate. That's what they do. And the Constitution, for all intents and purposes, is dying quickly, and this is just one more indication. And if this could happen in a little town in New Hampshire, the live free or die state, it could happen in any town in the United States at any moment. You open your mouth, and they don't like what you say, they're going to take you away in handcuffs. That's what's going to happen. And they could have charged me with all kind of stuff, and all of a sudden I would be sidelined with everything in my life. And that's what they count on. It's fear and intimidation. That's what they do, and force, and the threat of force. And that's what this is coming to. And if people don't stand up and stay together on this, we're never going to recover from this. People need to stand up and say, why don't you arrest all of us then? Until that happens, this will not stop. It will only get worse. And I just hope that, and I'm not a martyr, and I wasn't looking for this, and I didn't go out to get arrested, but, I mean, at some point, what are you going to do? You know, and I hope that people understand that, and people do enough, because I can only go so far with this, and I'm not sacrificing myself for a bunch of people who won't stand up for themselves. So
amen, brother. Amen, brother. All right, Billy Bear, thank you so much for checking in with us. I know that you're exhausted, and it's emotionally and intellectually, physically exhausting. To be on the other side of it too, you being assistant DA in the Bronx, and what you were photographed, fingerprinted, the whole shebang, right?
They actually didn't fingerprint me. I guess they were convinced of my identity, so they didn't fingerprint me. But again, I wasn't actually a prosecutor. I was working with the prosecutors while I was in law school full time. So I was working a 40-hour job and in law school in the evenings almost full time there, and preparing felony cases for trial for 2 years. And so being in this little Mickey Mouse jail in Guilford, New Hampshire was a little ridiculous.
Well,
anyway, that's the story.
Do you need bail money? You don't need bail money apparently, but your formal arraignment will be June 17th. What I'd like to see, I'd like to see enough outrage for this thing to be just totally tossed. I don't know.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it should be dismissed. Obviously, I mean, everybody would want that for themselves if they're in this position, just to get it over with. But I mean, the reality is, I might end up in jail. That might be the reality, that I might end up in jail because of this. Yeah, they'll say, okay, well, plead guilty. You can do whatever, community service, whatever, fine. I mean, at this point, I might say, you know what? I'm not paying the fine. I mean, that's how I feel about this. I've just had it with this. I mean, that this could happen over this kind of issue is just, it's absolutely chilling, and the reality of it still hasn't fully set in with me.
Well, somebody said it on the video. The wrong person was in handcuffs, and I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Billy, we're going to cut you loose so you can get some rest and with your family.
Okay, very good. Hey, have a good show.
Give your wife and daughter and children hugs. Y'all deserve it. God bless, Billy.
Take
care, my friend.
Okay, you guys. Thank you very much. Doug and Joe. Bye. Good night. All
right. Folks, that was Billy Bear, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm on the bandwagon here on this, okay? Look, I will post at the following the show. I will post a more complete, in-depth article about this. I will also post the JPEG image of page 313. Read it at your own peril.
Not to be funny about this, but we need a police officer in here for your 2-minute limit.
Yeah, you got the Nerf bat. No, I got the Nerf bat. Well, yeah, but I got to tell you something, okay? The Guilford School District in New Hampshire is going to hear from the Hagmann and Hagmann report tomorrow, care of Sue Allen, the chair, Kurt Weber, Karen Thurston, Ray Mello Andrews, and Jack Landau. They're all going to hear from us. I am also going to include in this article the email addresses of these people if they have them on their website. It's Guilford, New Hampshire, Guilford School District. This is the craziest thing. As far as I'm concerned, this is really child abuse.
It is crazy. Sadly, it is not the craziest story of the day.
Well, no, but
it
strikes home.
Right.
It's close to home here.
I mean, we as soon as I got to the studio, you said, sit down, check this out. And we watched that, and we've seen it so many times with other people that we don't know.
But now it's personal.
Yeah, I mean, you see teachers who have kids in schools handing out anti-Common Core literature getting suspended, parents getting fined for speaking out against Common Core on school grounds, students getting kicked out for coming against it. It's just getting way out of control. And I don't want to say it's too late with Common Core. There are some states fighting back. There are ways that people can fight back. How about everybody keeps their kids home from school for a week? How are they going to, what are they going to do?
Well, we're going to draw attention to this. In this case here, I think we can make a difference. I think that we can, by sheer numbers, by the volume of emails. Seriously, by the end of the week, I want the Guilford School District to wonder what in the world hit them. Okay, I seriously, I really do. I want them to question what they have done, and this communistic, and I say communistic, understanding full well the ramifications of that word. I mean, the school board to arbitrarily set this limit. Personally, I believe after watching this, and I watched this video several times, I interviewed is more like Billy Bear for quite a while. I talked to one other individual about this. I looked at this in a number of different ways, and frankly, I believe he was set up. I believe that, honestly, looking at this, I believe that they were waiting for him, lying in wait for him to make that mistake. And they had that. Oh, and by the way, that police officer that was there to maintain order upon arresting Mr. Bear, you know, if they were so concerned with order, they never replaced that officer. Did Billy say that? I didn't. It was.
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Yeah. See how you are? But they never replaced him. So in other words, what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this was choreographed to a certain extent. I'm not going to say it was, you know, that they knew exactly with precision what was going to happen, but I do believe that they were lying in wait because they could not afford to have a guy like this, as articulate as he is. You heard him, okay? You see his credentials. They can't afford the apple cart to be toppled in their venue. And at this point, like I said, it's my mission, folks, and I'm asking each and every one of you, with if you have the ability and the time, and then hopefully you can take a few minutes. Once you read the article, which I will have up, it seems like, man, there's just not enough hours in a day, but once the information is out there, formulate some sort of an email, you know, to Guilford School District, the principal, the chair, and so on and so forth. Even though you don't reside in that district, it's coming to your district, as Billy said. And it's already, to an extent, in ours, and we're fighting this as well at different levels. But
what was the name of that book? I actually think I found
19 minutes
of the curriculum. 19 minutes. Okay.
It's actually, it was on a New York Times bestseller, and it's I've got it right here. Not the book. It's let me just double check here. It's
here. I got it.
Okay, here in an interview Friday, and this is last week. Cult, the author, said the book is about a school shooting and bullying. The story begins on March 6, 2007, in the small town of Sterling, New Hampshire, and tells of the events leading up to the shooting and what followed. The bottom line is, okay, I've read police reports that are less graphic, and certainly books that are less pornographic than what just that one page. It's Picolt's first book to debut on the New York Times bestseller list, though it's not the first of her books to cause controversy. Several of her books have been banned at schools because of their content, yet this one is embraced. And a man has been arrested, and his reputation sullied to the extent it has. So, Guilford County School District, you are on the list of Hagmann and Hagmann. You are on the list. I'm going to be careful with what I say. I don't want to sound threatening, but you are under the. We have you in our sights, not on sites, just in our sights, on our list, because we are not happy with how you treated not just Billy Bear and his daughter, but the entire situation, and we can see right through you. Ninth grade, I believe.
Okay, ninth grade. Yeah. I have a list here. I don't know if it'll be in here. This is kind of old, but I'm going to look through this. Before Stan comes on, before we go to a break, we have just some crazy news. There was a woman who taped her abortion and posted it on YouTube.
I saw that, Joe, and I couldn't even just...
We're talking about, free speech. We have all these issues going on, court cases, people fighting to be able to say what's popular or what's not popular. The free speech protects, obviously, mostly what's not popular. That's why it was, First Amendment was written the way it was. But you have people being censored, people being arrested, people being, bullied and basically shut down for stating their opinions or beliefs. And if they don't go along with the globalist agenda, then they are shunned, marginalized, labeled. Yet you can have people post videos of themselves having abortions on YouTube and it's celebrated in the media.
Interesting how you said that. Exactly. Sherry writes, and very astute Sherry, listening now to the interview. Horrible what's being done in our schools. It sounds like the teachers are using this material to size up their next victim. In fact, the public schools are acting like the Catholic Church of past years. Now, hey, what's true is true, however uncomfortable it is. Teachers are acting like priests that sexually abuse children, and the school board is covering for them like the Cardinals did in the past. Again, this is what you're saying as a analogy. Advice to parents, she writes, advice to parents with children in school, do whatever you can to take them out of public school. Nothing is worth the corruption and abuse of your children. But you know what? And sure, I agree with you 100%. However, the however is this. We pay, I pay, you pay, we all pay taxes, school taxes. And we should have, because of this mutual, if Hillary Clinton says, hey, it takes a village, well, it's going to take a village to correct this smut, this pornography, this capturing of our children, this brainwashing. And I'm damn well not going to sit on the sidelines and allow this to happen to Billy's children, to my children or grandchildren, or anyone else's children. I'm going to do what I can, starting with the Guilford School District and letting them know exactly how I feel. And folks, I'd urge you to do the same. Like I said, I'll have all that information up as soon as I can after this show. But I'm angry about this, and there is such a thing as righteous anger, and I believe that. And by the way, I am fully in favor of the author writing that book, selling that book, and people buying that book if that is their preference. My problem is is it appropriate for
right? Is it appropriate for K through 12 schools? First of all, second of all, having no, they get permission from parents for anything that it used to be anything that was mildly controversial, or even a field trip, a fire drill sometimes,
And he made a good point, too, Joe. And it's like, have you upgraded, for example, let's say a program on your computer, you see by default things are checked that you certainly don't want, bloatware, for example, on your computer that you don't want. In order to attend the field trip, you check, yes, I will allow my child to attend the field trip. In something like this, the default setting was if you don't object, you're allowing your child to be subjected to this. So this was cagey from the start.
Yes, it was. And with that, we're going to go to our break. We have Stan Deo coming up next. He says he has some hot news on Yellowstone, and he said you're going to need 2 browsers or 2 windows open for tonight's show, one for his website and one for the show images link that's on the right side of the page next to the microphone on his page at standeo.com. He's coming up next after these short announce. Dan, it's great to have you back on again.
Thank you, guys. Look, tonight is going to be one of those nights where you want to be sure you record this and take notes. There's something very serious in the wind with Yellowstone and also with Oklahoma and the quakes there. The United States has been trying to make contracts with 4 countries at least, with let's see, with Australia and Africa, I don't think is going to go with the deal, but they've been trying to make a deal worth $10 billion. And that deal with these countries, there's 4 countries they're dealing with at the moment, will allow the United States to take refugees from a Yellowstone Park eruption over to those people's countries and house them there. Now, I don't know how they would get, 1 million people to Australia or, Africa in a hurry, but the point is that they're making this contract to be valid from 2014, this year, to 2024, 10 years down the road. Not forever, just a 10-year window that they're wanting to pay these countries to house refugees from a Yellowstone eruption. Now, ordinarily, you'd say, well, okay, that's some kind of a political maneuver, perhaps, something like that. I mean, Brazil, Argentina, Australia, maybe that's some kind of to get for. When you look at the data that we're getting on Yellowstone, like the seismic recorders and the signals, a whole new story comes out. And I've spent most of today getting just downloading the data off of the seismometers there at Yellowstone Park. There's 32 public ones, and then I don't know how many that the government's keeping secret, but I've known for 2 years, and we've shared it on the show, that the government has been clamping down on the data getting out of Yellowstone, what's happening there. They've got all the USGS engineers and all the service people that drive trucks and water lawns or whatever there, all under secrecy agreements. Now, if you go to standeo.com and you'll see there the show images, like Joe said, and get to our show images page. The very top 6 images are from Yellowstone. And what I've done is I've put on there a thing that shows you the types of seismogram images, the wavy forms, and you'll see that thing says 4 major types of seismograms. And you click on that, and it'll expand into these 4 types of patterns. And this is from USGS, the 4 types of patterns, and telling you what you're seeing on their seismographs. Okay, click on that, have a look at it. But the one you want to look at is down at the very bottom, harmonic tremor, where it's kind of uniform little bumpity bumps along the way. Not big things, but little vibrations. And those you see when magma is rising up a volcanic vent. You don't want to see those anywhere close to where you're living. Now, if you go to the show images page, top row, second image in, click on that, and it might take, a bit of time for it to load in. Uh-oh. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. I just lost my internet thing there. Okay. Now it's back. But click on that second image there, and it'll load up a not reduced or anything type image, and you'll see 3 seismograms today. I mean, I only stopped an hour ago, I think, when I was downloading them. And you'll see at the very bottom of the first one on the left, it's from a place called Maple Creek. It's a seismometer, Maple Creek, Yellowstone Park. And you'll notice those uniform little vibrations running through there. Down toward the last 3 or 4 hours at the bottom, those little vibrations get thicker and busier. Those are harmonic tremors. And if you look at the next, on that same picture, but look over at Mirror Lake Plateau, you'll see, again, harmonic tremors start, stop down at the bottom. That's today, in the last, probably 6 hours on that one. And then if you go to the last part of that image on the right side, that is from a borehole that they're letting you see the data on. It's borehole number 944 that they've dug down into Grant in Yellowstone Park there to, I guess, monitor seismic activity and magma and that kind of stuff. And again, you see between 12 and 1:30 Mountain Standard Time today. That's that thick part there down at the bottom where the reds and blues and the greens and blacks are. And you'll see harmonic tremors there. Now, these are 3 different locations, east, west, and middle of Yellowstone Park. And when you start seeing periodic, harmonic tremors, you have to kind of think about this and say, what is going on? The fact they've put everybody under secrecy agreements there since 2012 tells you something is amiss. Now, if you go to the third image on line 1 there of show images today, you will see 3 days worth, today, yesterday, and the day before, of borehole 944 right there in the middle of Yellowstone Park, and you will see the busyness of the seismometer toward the end of the day. That was the 4th and the 5th. You'll see down at the very bottom you get earthquakes or seismic activity that's very interesting. And then you get over to today, and we haven't got to the end of the day. We've still got another 5-6 hours to go here. And we'll see if it does the same kind of thing that we've seen on the 2 days previous to today. And those are not minor vibrations, and they're indicating harmonic tremors from 3 days ago. I'm not a prophet, but I'm telling you this: they are making plans to deal with a major eruption at Yellowstone. There are 3 other sites which are, I showed you that in the comparison up the front, and they also show something else that's pretty weird. If you go to the second row, first image, it'll take a bit to load because it's a big image, about 2 megabytes. But when you get it open, you're going to see, on, those 3 days there for the Denny Creek, which is out northwest, out where the new vent would be, the charts for that don't show a lot of heavy activity at that particular point, but they do show something that appears in a lot of other seismometers in the park over the last 3 or 4 days. And that's what looks like a tiny earthquake. Goes zip, zip, up, down, and you'll see it running down the page diagonally. And at Denny Creek, which is the one we're looking at, on the 4th, those intervals of those funny little glitches are exactly 25.3 minutes apart. Then you go over to yesterday's on Denny Creek, and you see long diagonal paths there, and that is exactly 28.6 minutes apart. And then you come to today, and what it's showing today is 28 minutes apart. Now, I don't know what is causing this, unless it's some kind of sensor malfunction when they're polling those seismometers from the supercomputer they got linked up to the data feeds from Yellowstone. But I've never seen these things before. I mean, this is just too regular. It's got to be man-made, something to do with, monitoring all these seismometers, because that's because of the same height amplitude of these little squiggles, and because they follow an exact pattern of time between them, it tells me it's some kind of a machine interface, human interface that's doing that. But again, this is an unusual thing, and you don't see it often. Now, in fact, I've not seen it like this before, and I've checked back, spotting this time of year back for 7 years, I think it is now. 6.5 years, and I've not seen this kind of activity for this time of year. I mean, 9 out of 32 seismometers that are public are busy, and either in harmonic tremors or heavy vibrations that may be harmonic tremors with a very short period. But if you go to the next one, the second row, second image in the middle there, and click on that and get it up, that is Mirror Lake Plateau. And that shows, again, 3 days worth of data on it. And you'll see that stupid pattern, that little glitch that goes down, 28.6 minutes between in the middle there and 25.3 on the left. These glitches are on different seismometers, but they're the same pattern and the same distance between the events, whatever this is. All right, now if you go back to the last image on the second row, the third image, that's the Mammoth Vault. It's probably one of the busier sites you're going to see. And I should have put up a link to that other thing. I'll let people go and see themselves. But the site's being hit rather heavily at the moment. People are tuning in from everywhere. Anyway, that Mammoth Vault is it's not only got the pattern running from top left down to the lower right, it's got heavy vibrations, heavy harmonics for the last 3 days. All this activity started in the middle of the 3rd of April, and then I'm showing you the 4th, 5th, and 6th. But these strange anomalies started about 3.5 days ago. And darn near every one of these things has got those funny little glitches that form that streak from top left down to the lower right through data that's real earthquake data. I don't know what these are, as I said, but they are new. And with all the information we're getting about the Yellowstone eruption, the likelihood of it, we've got to pay attention to this. This is very serious. In fact, this morning when Holly got up, it was very quiet outside. She mentioned this on the website in a note down there, and she says, let me just read it to you. She says, this morning was weird. When I opened the doors to let in the Colorado morning sweet air, it wasn't even light yet. Normally, birds are singing by 5 a.m., checking for worms and gathering twigs, etc. This morning was so eerily quiet that I nearly woke Stan, because I'm a late sleeper. I stay up late and get up late. No breeze rustled and no one was about. It was like a daytime page out of Omega Man. Everything was silence. Then this article pops up on Live Science. Maybe just a coincidence. Now that we'll get to in a minute. She was referring more to the Oklahoma quakes, but I think all these things are connected. On that show images page, I do this every show for you, put up the earthquake occurrences for the last 30 days for the planet and for the last 30 days for the United States. And you have to go down probably midway down the page, and you'll see the earthquake plots for the last 30 days and for the last 7 days, worldwide and America-wide. And you'll notice on the one that says earthquakes last 7 days in the United States that are above 2.5, if you click on that map, you will see that Oklahoma is extremely busy. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show, about how busy it is. But as I've said in the last couple of weeks, look at the pattern. You're seeing Oklahoma, you're seeing the top or the center of the New Madrid fault line, and then you're seeing the Appalachian Mountains. In the last 7 days have had a couple of quakes there. We still haven't seen the quakes, the minor quakes appearing near Charlotte in Carolina, South Carolina, but we will be seeing these things. I'm reasonably certain that over the next 2 or 3 weeks we're going to see a lot more activity along that weakness, which the USGS shows in color code as red areas surrounded by yellow. And these are moving not only through Oklahoma, but up into northern Idaho, up into Oregon. And this is not a peaceful time. Things are happening out there. You can look at those maps, pull them up at your leisure, and see the earthquake patterns. I haven't updated 2 of them, the 4.5 worldwide and the 2.5 worldwide for the last 30 days. But the rest of it I've got from 30 April to 6 May on that line. And these are the major earthquakes that you're looking at here. So that tells you the pattern where it's headed.
What would this, Stan, if I can ask, Yellowstone, okay, what would this look like? I mean, worst case scenario, what would it look like?
An eruption like the catastrophic eruption?
Well, okay, when you say catastrophic eruption, you mean
about like the great big one that blew the caldera, several 100,000 years ago?
Okay. Maybe not the worst case scenario then. Like a warning, like a shot across the bow. What would that look like? Take out some population, homes. What? I'm trying to get a handle on what what it might look like.
I take it you're planning to visit the area sometime soon.
Yeah.
I thought so. Well, take your cameras.
Should we take our asbestos suits too, or what?
You're probably not going to be that close, but
Okay.
I really don't know whether, it's going to be this week, this month, this year. But because the U.S. contracts run for a 10-year period to move people who are displaced, we know it's going to take an amount of time to organize people and to get them out of the country on whatever, flights or boats or whatever they're going on, to get to, the resettlement centers or the camps where they will be set up to be taken care of. If this does start seriously, we're going to see sulfur dioxide gas, bad smells sweeping, downwind from Yellowstone. So if you get that sewer smell in your neighborhood, if you're kind of south and east of Yellowstone, then realize that Yellowstone has got magma moving up very close to the surface and could punch through. The carbon dioxide you probably won't smell, but the carbon dioxide comes up when there are seismic pressures there, but it's not when magma is close to the surface. The carbon dioxide vents, from time to time and kills trees, and that's just a normal thing for a volcano that's active. But when the rotten egg smell comes, you don't want to be close to it. You want to be moving somewhere else for a while. And if it does erupt, I think it will probably do it in two places, possibly on the northwest side of the lake, or of the caldera, and on the northeast side. Both sides are showing activity from what I can determine from the seismometers over the last week. There was an eruption there at Yellowstone on the 30th of March this year. That was a 4.8, and that's when the United States, at least the public announcement of dealing with Australia, Brazil, and Argentina to house casualties and disrupted persons. That's when that news leaked, that rumor, if you wish, through various kind of trusted websites that distribute, not mainstream news, but stuff that's really good. It may just do a lava flow, and that would be the best case scenario, where the magma pushes up and oozes and kind of sputters and spits and spreads magma all over the area where that hole in the surface of Yellowstone Park opens up. That'd be the best case. Well, the best case would be it doesn't go at all, but the next best case is that. It gets a little worse if during this process of magma moving and erupting and coming out at a low level as a magma flow, if water, underground water, somehow breaches that cavern where the magma pool is. If that happens, it'll blow the lid off of it. I mean, it'll blow the lid off big time. So you've got three cases. Nothing happens. Magma flow only, lava. Third, it blows its top. And if that happens, we've got real problems nationwide, in fact, worldwide. So I'm kind of thinking that, I'm hoping from what signs I've seen, that the magma flow will become a lava flow and, a little bubbling and spitting and whatever, but not a major eruption. I don't think that we're at that point yet, but I could be wrong. Does that make your day?
Well, yeah. I mean,
it really wouldn't. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in the U.S. If that thing were to blow at its full potential, we are all in trouble, as Stan said.
Exactly. But seriously, that would not to make light of it, of course, but that would be something to see, and certainly something to photograph, something to witness. The destructive nature of it, though. How wide of an area, if you were, I can't remember if it was the second scenario or the...
You mean the lava flow?
Yeah, I mean, how wide of an area are we talking about?
Well, I think it would be contained within the boundaries of Yellowstone Park. At any rate, I think it would be. The one that hits way across the United States and throws up dust clouds and ash and silicon glass particles and things like that. That one it might reach within a 600-mile radius of Yellowstone, and probably majority of that going southeast and east from there. I know that there have been drills, you're aware of it too, that where the government has run FEMA-type drills in the New Madrid area, how to feed 1 million people meals, et cetera, and how to take care of the dead bodies. And people were thinking, they're doing this for New Madrid. But if you think about it, they might be doing the testing, the scenario testing, how to mitigate that there. But if it hit that area, it would so disrupt roads around the New Madrid area, and people would be in panic and whatever, that I don't think that they would be doing their disaster management there, for the survivors of that. They would be east of there or west of the Mississippi. So I think what they were doing was practicing to take care of refugees from the Yellowstone eruption. And, people would be trying to get ahead of it. Instead of going over the mountains, they'll come south and east, which would be toward the New Madrid area, across the flats of Kansas and Missouri and stuff. That's what I think is happening.
Oh, understood. Oh, Yogi and Boo Boo. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you've got your eyes fixed on this, your gaze fixed on this, and it's interesting to see this. When I went to Drudge today and saw the warnings for Oklahoma quake warning, I just got a weird feeling about it. The reason I bring this in is it just seems like the Earth is just saying, hey, pay attention, people.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the Oklahoma thing and the Yellowstone thing, and also seismic activity up around northwest Washington State, and obviously some later down in California, but I think that we're seeing activity in Oklahoma that is connected to the edge of the North American Shield Plate, which I talked about, and it's still up there on the show images page down a ways. It's a white image and shows a dotted line. And that dotted line, certainly the Oklahoma quakes are there. The dotted line will go up through Yellowstone and right on up into Canada. And there's a little island called the Colorado Plateau in that thing as well. So what we're saying, I think, is Oklahoma is connected to what's making Yellowstone vibrate as well, or vice versa. If you go to our main page, the standale.com, Holly has put up that article on the increased Oklahoma earthquakes. And if you're not good at reading graphs, I mean, the graph is there. You can click on it, and she shows it. From 1978 to 1999, the earthquakes in Oklahoma that were magnitude 3 or greater, you'd only get about 1.5 to 2 of them a year on average. Okay? And then that kind of an average held up until about 2009, and then they started to pick up. As of May 2nd this year, the magnitude 3 earthquakes number about 183 to 85, and that's about 170 times the average from 1978 to 2008. So there is something definitely afoot. And if you look at that graph from 2009 till today, you can see that there is a definite upward spiral of the number of 3.0 or greater earthquakes in Oklahoma. And you can just read that and see that graph on the website there. And right underneath that graph is a map which shows, from USGS, it shows the number of earthquakes greater than Richter 3 across a segment of the United States. And surprise, surprise, look at what the segment covers. Oklahoma City right in the middle. It covers New Madrid over on the right. And the edge of the Yellowstone area just goes off screen, but you can see the earthquakes occurring there. Now, you can see that the earthquakes are taking an exponential, like a rapidly rising curve from 2005 to now, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. These things, we've tried to tell people, a long time ahead of the actual events, how to get prepared to handle what may be coming to you in whatever area you live in the United States. And so If you go on down a little bit further, you can see a color map from USGS, which is a cumulative map over a period of years in some cases here, but it shows you in the past week the number of earthquakes that have hit Oklahoma City and north of there up to the border to Kansas, and also Arkansas, which connects over to the New Madrid, and then down into South Carolina. You can see those are older quakes, but that's in Tennessee and South Carolina, I'm expecting to see more frequent quakes start appearing this month. Again, not prophetic thing, but it just, data kind of gives me a sense that we're very close to something happening.
Okay. Yeah, that is...
sorry, go ahead.
Now, I was looking at the images on your show page. I see you have a bunch of nuclear explosion images here.
Oh, that was just to get your attention.
Well, it worked. No, it worked real well. No.
Yeah, go on.
And what are the difference between these blasts? Are these the same type of weapons, like atom bombs? Are these tested? Are these pictures from when they started testing them back decades ago? Okay.
Yeah, most of them are old, but they're airbursts except for two that are on the ground. And actually three. The blast number 6 is over Bikini Atoll, and it was a hydrogen bomb. And possibly blast 1 was on the ground as well. Those are atomic fission bombs. Fusion bombs are really hot, and I think blast 2 and blast 6 and blast 4 are probably hydrogen bombs. Now, I picked 2, 3 of them, I guess, to try to show an air burst and how the little rings, in the clouds or the heated vapor spread out around a great area. And the reason I did that was to draw attention to the EMP situation. There's a lot of misinformation that's some of it's good, some of it's bad about how to protect yourself and your equipment from what happens in an EMP attack, either from the sun or from Russia, China, or somebody else that detonates an atomic bomb, whether fission or fusion, over the United States at an altitude of, say, 120 to 300 miles altitude. And you'll see a little graph there that Holly has in her book, the Dare to Prepare book, showing you if the blast were over Kansas, just for the northern border between that and Nebraska, that you would see if the blast were 30 miles high, only an area with a diameter of about 1,000 miles would be affected, and it would zap equipment in that area. But if it were 120 miles high, the middle ring, then you would see a diameter of about 2,000 miles. And if you were 300 miles high, you would see 3,600 mile diameter circle, which would encompass most of the lower 48. Now, both the United States and Russia have tested at an altitude of approximately 250 miles. The American test, actually, we're south of Hawaii by 960 miles, and it affected radio equipment at Hickam Field in Hawaii. So, and the Russians got similar results from when they tested their nuke at altitude. So this does work. It will reach out and grab you. So you need to prepare, and the preparation. There's been a lot of people who looked at quick and dirty methods of preparing for this with metal trash cans, that you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. And they said, look, we'll just get a metal trash can. We'll put our stuff inside of it on a block of foam or in a plastic bag to insulate the stuff from the inside of that metal can, and we'll shove the metal lid on it, and voila, it'll be safe. This is not the case. You have to do something else to that trash can, in fact, two something else's, to make it work efficiently to save the stuff you're trying to protect. Now, Dr. Arthur Bradley has not only written a book, he's put a video on the internet, YouTube, which he made in his laboratory with all the various equipment needed to generate artificial EMP pulse signals and to determine how much of it gets inside that trash can. And you would be surprised how leaky that trash can is unless you do a very simple thing. You go down to your hardware store and you get some of that 2-inch wide aluminum air conditioning pipe tape. And because it's got a conductive glue on it, and the tape itself is metal and conductive, and you put the lid on your trash can, your metal trash can, and you run that tape around. He shows you how to do it and shows you by data that comes live how much more effective that is. It's like 5 times more effective shielding than if you just slam the lid on. Any little crack, any little crevice that you don't make covered between the lid and the body of the trash can is a potential leak of some description. And once you get the tape, before you tape it up, you need to insulate, electrically insulate whatever you're putting in there from the outside and the top of the can, or the outside wall of the can from inside of it. So that means, maybe some polystyrene foam or some kind of thing to lift the things off the bottom of the metal can, and some kind of foam insulation or non-moisture absorbing insulation like plastic between the wall of the inside of the can and the object that you've got in a little, plastic bag of its own. And then the last thing that you need to do to really get good protection is to hook up a conductive wire. It doesn't have to be big, but just a copper wire of some sort from the outside of that trash can to a ground, a really good ground. And a good ground is if you can find a water pipe in your house, or if you want to make your own, you get an 8-foot copper rod from Lowe's or Home Depot. You drive that down in the ground and you hook your wire to that, and you've now got a grounded can. But that's not all of the news. The other news is we all thought, myself included, that in a nuke, your modern cars are going to be fried. All the electronics would go, but not so. They've been doing tests out at White Sands at the nuclear testing facility. They've got a whole chamber that you drive your car into, and then they blast you with an EMP strength of series of waves, frequencies, to fry the car. And surprise, surprise, 90% of the cars in the United States just glided to a stop, and the engine shut off, but you could just turn the key and start it up again. You might have minor problems with the radio or with a blinker, but nothing serious. The car would run, and that is great news. 10% of the cars, okay, well, they had a problem, but it wasn't something so terrible that it couldn't be fixed. Most of the time, with just some minor changes that a household mechanic could probably do. So there's detail on this in the report of the Commission to Assess the Threat to the United States from EMP Attack. Now, that report is on our website. It will not disappear. It's an official paper. You click on that right next to that trash can picture. You click on that, download that thing, and see how many areas of your life the government has thought might be affected by an EMP pulse that wipes out most of the infrastructure electronics in the United States. And there are things in there that you might not have thought about. Pacers. You might think, well, heart pacer, if I've got one of those and it goes off, I'm doomed. Not so. At least 80% of those it won't be a problem, because they've made these things with metal shielding, like a little Faraday cage around the heart pacer, so that it's not going to be affected by electronics or high voltage transmissions. And if they put the paddles on you to give electric shock to restart your heart, they don't want that to zap your pacemaker. So it's been shielded for that. So the good news is, most people won't even have a failure or any change at all to the pacemaker. And they note in the report that, well, okay, if the pacemaker does fry, it was there to assist you. And in the majority of those cases, the pacemaker may fail, but your heart will pick up the slack and start to try to get a regular rhythm itself. So you may have to reduce activities and be careful, but you won't be dead. And there are things about food, transport, gasoline pumping. You won't be getting any money or, cash using credit cards or things, because nothing will be working. But there are at least 10 major areas that they talk about. And one of them that has really been proven already is that for even 24 hours, like the blackout that occurred in 77 New York City for one day, over 3,700 people were arrested for crimes they committed looting, shooting, stealing, all kinds of stuff during that 24-hour blackout. And they said they only got about half of the people that made crimes in the darkness of New York City. That's in one day.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that blackout in '77, and I think that was just in the greater Manhattan area. I don't think that encompassed all the 5 boroughs, but I could be mistaken on that.
There was the blackout in the Northeast after September 11th, where it took out most of the Northeast.
Well, you see, that tells you that, okay, you better have some kind of a plan B in place to meet with your family members should you be away from the home when an EMP wipes out your cell phones and ability to communicate. And then plan C is when you get back together with your family, or if you can't, are they able to protect themselves against looters, like with that valuable metal lead. You're going to have to think like this because our country is not made up nowadays of people who are trying to help each other. In a crisis, they become, number one becomes more important, their family becomes more important, and they justify all kinds of crime, stealing, shooting, killing, whatever, in the name of helping themselves and their family. They just aren't honorable people when this crisis hits nowadays. People are too used to the good life here in America.
Yeah, I agree.
I think here too, a very simple thing to save your cell phone, if you know an EMP is coming, is get a Mylar bag and throw your phone in there and just put a clip on it like they show in that video there on my website there on that show images, and it will save your phone. And, if the cell towers come back up and start running on emergency power or aren't totally fried, then you might be able to get a call through at some point in time after the EMP pulse. Excuse me.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Stan, I wanted to ask you about this video you sent. You were telling me about the UFO hitting a... Yeah, I'm sorry, I muted myself. You were talking to me earlier about UFO attacks and destroys a Taliban base or a Taliban camp in Afghanistan. And I've watched the video a few times, and I don't know if that is real or not. Just because it looks like something that would be fabricated or from a movie.
It almost looks like a drone to me, though. In a couple of frames I saw, it looked like a or not a drone, but a B-1 type
hovercraft.
Small. Yeah, well, small.
Well, I wondered if it was a film as well, like had been faked. But I've enlarged this. I've taken it apart, frame by frame. And this is not to say that it can't be done by Hollywood or somebody with that talent, but the craft does look like a number of the experimental stealth-type bombers and fighters that have been made and just not released to the public. I mean, when you hear about a B-1, B-2, or, Wobbly Goblin, that kind of stuff, those things are 20, 25 years out of date when you hear about it. This thing here, I noticed that when it fired on the alleged Taliban site, that in the burst mode, there were several large flashes from that cockpit or that hemispherical area underneath the triangular wing. To me, that was not like a laser, plasma weapon or something that a normal sci-fi presentation would make. You'd look more like space type, super technology than what I saw there. What I saw there looked like standard, type explosives that were launched from that vehicle down to the target. And you could see the flashes. I couldn't see the actual object because the film was on high enough resolution. But so I'm of two minds about it, but I'm leaning toward that might be one of our real tactical advantages that was used in Afghanistan for helping out that Marine division there. I don't know.
Well, either way, it's very interesting, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. Another issue I wanted to ask you about, Comet Linear. Astronomers are predicting a meteor storm at the end of May from Comet Linear debris, apparently. And they're saying it will peak between the 23rd and 24th of May, and it has the potential to produce 1,000 meteors per hour, which is a number I have not heard, I don't think, since paying attention to the meteor showers we see, and I know this is different, but could it really be that?
Yeah, but when you look at it, 1,000 per hour, they might come in little groups, and then for 10 minutes you'd have nothing, or you might, if you space them out on average, you're looking at every minute you might see 14 or 15 meteors or meteorites eventually. Now, in the southern hemisphere, they'll get a better picture of it, or a better view of it than we will, but still, we will be able to see in the northern hemisphere some of that. And you don't know what the size of them will be. Are they sand grain size, or are they a threat? I don't even know if they have an idea yet of what size debris is going to come in the tail. Do you? Have you seen anything to tell you what size it is?
Well, no. This article that I have here is from the International Business Times, and it does say that it shows anywhere from 100 to 1,000 meters per hour. It talks about this might be a storm instead of a shower. It does not talk about how big the meteors could be, which
I don't even know if they have the ability to tell that. It's very difficult to tell when they don't light up when they're out there in space.
Yeah, here we go. It's as little is known about linear. It was thought to be around 1 kilometer in diameter and will approach Earth at the end of May. The distance is around 8 million kilometers, and the comet orbits the sun every 5 years. But it does not get into the size of the debris that we could be going through.
Well, again, I guess we have to wait and see, because the size of some of these things, if a sand grain make a streak in the sky that you can see, you can imagine what maybe a baseball size thing would do. When you look into deep space at linear and its tail or its trail where it's been, the debris trail, it is very difficult to see something out there that's not hot and it's not visibly illuminated and is above a certain size, so that you get a couple of pixels on your scanner. So I understand the difficulty in officialdom being able to tell you the density of that field, but they're doing it statistically and on the mass of the effect of linear on nearby masses. That gives them an idea of the total mass of the comet and of the debris trail behind it, so they know it's going to be within a certain range. And from past exposures, what the showers are like. And as the orbit gets closer and closer to the Earth before it moves away, it can have a thicker debris trail, which is how they estimate the count.
Okay.
Just another thing here, too. Just let me backtrack 1 second on the EMP stuff. When the government there, the testing showed that the cars act like a Faraday cage because they're up on rubber tires, and they're pretty good because you can still get your radio to work and that kind of stuff. I suppose it means that you could throw stuff into your car and make it a Faraday cage, and about the only thing I'd suggest is you hook a wire to the metal part under the hood, and connect that to ground to make it a totally good one. But people that are looking for ways to make cheap Faraday cages, but maybe one of your cars is. Just a thought. Anyway, I'm off of that and back to comments now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, along the same line of thought, well, what about a microwave? Same deal, right?
Oh, yeah, microwave. Yeah, you can throw small stuff in there, slam it shut, keep it connected. But the microwave produces radiation similar to like an EMP, and you wouldn't want to have that, fry you or, hurt your eyes and stuff. So they build those shields in them, and those little front doors have got little holes in that metal shield. Those holes are of a particular diameter so that they will block all wavelengths down to that size. And conversely, they'll block wavelengths coming in down to that size. Now, if you really want to get busy about it, you can put an aluminum foil sheet, tape it inside the microwave, not when you're using it, but just as a Faraday cage to protect things. You must unplug it and tape that aluminum foil inside the front door to cover those holes so that you don't have even a much finer wavelength, a higher frequency getting through. But that's just ultimate protection.
Oh, so Stan, if I can just harp on this one more time, or continue on. of a scale of 1 to 10, what is your fear or concern or likelihood of an EMP strike, whether it be natural via the sun or man-made here in the United States, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most likely, and of course 1 being the least likely?
You mean what source of the EMP or when?
I think it's
wow. If yeah, and I guess you just answered the question. But
yeah, it's an old thing, not if but when. But okay, not when but if, or something. Anyway, the thing is that with the tensions between the United States and Russia, and to a degree China, over various moves in the Middle East and in Europe, Ukraine, Crimea, Iran, Israel, these kind of things make it very easy for a limited nuclear exchange to occur. And it only takes one. We know the Russians have tried it. We've tried it here in the United States to test the EMP effectiveness. And they're getting very clever to the point where they can make that EMP bomb at high altitude so effective and so clean that it just kills the electronics and doesn't do much damage underneath, in the ground, 200, 300 miles below. I remember asking Werner von Braun years ago when I met him in Dallas, do you plan to do some tests with nukes in orbit, which is only a few hundred miles up there, to see the effects? And he just smiled and he says, oh, well, you never know. So back in the 60s, they were considering things like that.
Wow. Well, just the fact that you were talking with Werner von Braun, that's, I'm sure you could tell some stories there, but wow, interesting. Yeah. I didn't mean to sidetrack you with the continued EMP discussion. Go ahead. You were going somewhere when I derailed your thought process.
What planet are we on? Where am I? Look, I'm going to have Holly put a piece of software, or you won't see much of it except one little box you click and type in your email on our main website page. Since she's not updating it every day to the degree that she used to, we're going to put a little piece of code in there so that whenever we add something to that page, if you even change a word on that page, it will send you an email. People that sign up to it, it'll send you an email, and it'll tell you, go check this website out, standeo.com, because something has changed on that page. And that way, if you forget to check someday to see if anything's happening there, you'll know. And this is a service that's been around for 20 years, or 15, 16 years anyway. And it's a free service. There are a lot of people that do it, but we'll just put the code up there for you. You type in your email, and it'll send that, our website URL to this company that does that. And with your email, they will be able to send you a notice anytime anything on the page changes. So that'll help you out a bit so that you'll stay informed.
Yeah, sounds very convenient.
Yeah, it is.
And I got a question for you, Stan. I know you said you were able to start your garden. What are the most productive fruits or vegetables or things that you would grow in your garden to get the most out of the least?
Well, corn is not one of the high priorities. It's not got a high protein or carbohydrate or caloric value like you need, but you want trace minerals, iron, various things like that from your leafy green vegetables, various types of lettuce. Celery is good. You want some flavor in your diet, so you can grow garlic and onions. This year we've got peppers, grapes, blueberries, raspberries, watermelon, acorn squash, cantaloupe. We do have corn, but not a lot of it. Let's see, we've got some cilantro spice, beans, peas. What else? Radishes, and we've planted those in rotating crops so that they'll come due several weeks apart, so we can keep them in the ground like that. Gosh, Holly, what else? Did I forget anything? Celery, I said that. We haven't got any cauliflower yet? Broccoli, yeah. I know those are bad words. Who eats, broccoli or whatever, but it is good. And and one crop we've got, which is almost a weed. It's so prolific, it's hard to kill, and you don't want to. It's called a Jerusalem artichoke or a sunchoke. Now, one of our neighbors and even myself, we have trouble with blood sugar levels, and which can develop into diabetes if you don't treat it by diet. Jerusalem artichoke, eating the root from that, probably the size of a hen egg twice a week, mitigates, helps to heal the body of the problem that would normally develop into diabetes, and in some cases it has been known to back off diabetes completely. So this is a medicine that's good on your salads because you just peel it like you do a potato, slice it up, and it's like what do they call those little white things that you put on salad, the crispy things? Water chestnuts. It's like a water chestnut, but you can cook it like a potato and mash it and put, salt and pepper on it, whatever, butter. I eat it raw. Just have it in the fridge, and if you put it in a normal refrigerator around 38 degrees, which is a normal fridge, it will keep for 6 to 8 months. And I've got what I harvested before this season began in our fridge now in a baggie, and it's crisp and wonderbar. And you can put it on your salads, as I say, or just eat it raw. That's a very important one. And we have 15 trees that we've put out with apple, and we've got plums this year. It's going to be a bad year, I think, for crop yield on our cherries and pears and peaches and stuff. For some reason, it hasn't set. There's not a lot of blossoms come out on those. But again, these things are in the high desert here in Colorado, and we're kind of taking a crapshoot to make them work in this kind of weather and wind, but we're trying, and we've had enough to have. We've got cherry jam and plum jam, and we've got canned peaches and stuff from 2 seasons ago even. Those are important things.
Well, because of your location there, in state law, Cinderella 99, Blue Velvet, Special Queen, Purple or Silver Haze, and other moderate THC type plants, for gardening.
That'll make you hungry and not fill your stomach.
I wasn't sure where you were going for a second, but then I recognized those weird names were for marijuana. But I suppose people could grow that kind of stuff here too. People do it. But the weather here, we're in a very changeable weather here in Colorado most of the time, but in the high desert it can be quite brutal. Fortunately, we're now entering the good part of a 20-year cycle of drought, so that the drought's almost over, I think, and we're going to be seeing more wet and hence more crops for the next 6 to 8 years. It'd be good because we've got a crop of tumbleweeds you wouldn't believe, but that also means we get grass and other things growing.
Interesting. I wanted to say I remember my grandparents used to always have a raspberry garden, and they'd make the best jelly ever. That stuff was good for so long, and used to go out there in the morning and pick those berries that were ripe and eat them right off the thing. They're delicious.
We do too, but we have to fight the quail that get over the fence. They'll fly over and come for the raspberries. They're the funniest thing in the world to watch, because the raspberry bushes that we've got, we just put them as low down bushes rather than up on trellises. And you'll see, if you look through the window, you'll see a quail jumping up, like leap up and grab a raspberry thing and fall back down the ground and eat it, and you see these little heads bobbing up and down as they're stealing your raspberries.
That's funny.
Oh, it is. You got to laugh sometime.
No, the wonderment of nature, and it's just fun to watch, and it's great stuff. Always end on a good note, a favorable note, as opposed to the dire, dark, type of topics we were initially talking about. So, gardening is always good. I have to ask you this too, while I'm thinking of it. Didn't Holly say that she was growing tomatoes upside down?
Yeah, we tried that a couple of years back, the little hanging bags,
Yeah.
meat bags, and I found in our condition, weather condition here, that wasn't as good an idea as putting them in the ground or running them up on a trellis, because even though it makes bigger tomatoes, when you have wind like we have, it moves the actual plant back and forth, and it rubs against the edge of the hole you've made in the bucket, and it starts to cut into the stem, and you have a problem.
Gotcha.
It's something we could fix, but we had so many other things, cages and stuff we're building to keep rabbits and birds out. They all like what we grow here, but yeah, that does grow it well. And also you'll find that cantaloupe and watermelon, if you lift the fruit up on like one of those trellises and tie it on with a bag so it's supported, you'll get a very nice fat and sweet fruit that way. We've also this year started mitigating for what's called a codling moth, which is a little moth about ½ inch long, and they come and they lay eggs in your peaches, your apples, plums, and stuff like that. So we've invested in some 2-liter bottles with some molasses and vinegar and yeast in them, and cut a little hole in the side, and by golly, we're catching them now before the little devils can get in there and put holes in our fruit. But it's just a learning curve. I mean, you got to dive in and try it, and we learn every season. We learn something else. This year, we sprouted darn near everything early in the house in a little indoor seed sprouting trays. We had more than enough stuff to plant in the ground. It saves you tons of money if you think about paying $3 or $4 for a little 6-inch plant.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, whatever. She's telling me it's 4 inches, but when you go down to the Home Depot and stuff like that, or Lowe's, those plants will be 4 to 6 inches tall, and you got to pay a few bucks for each one of those. Well, gosh, I forget how many we had. Over 100, I think, here, and that would have been a lot of dollars if we had bought them as plants. But the seeds, they're cheap, and you can run them from year to year, preserve them. It's right. Something we find it very satisfying at doing that. You see the fruits of your labor, and it's a good thing. And you, as Joe says, you can run out there in the season and pick it off the bush or the tree and enjoy.
Yeah.
And it has taste, The tomatoes are the most astounding things, because you buy these red-colored cellophane balls that they call tomatoes in the market, and they're just tasteless. You get a real tomato, I'll tell you what, your taste buds come alive.
I did notice that. I don't think I've had a very good tomato in a long time. And the homegrown tomatoes are the best. And folks, I know this sounds like, what are you guys talking about, for crying out loud? But seriously, I mean, and I'm sure the nutrition value too is exponentially higher in the homegrown.
Sure. Well, look, people don't have to be, conspiracy nuts or preppers or that kind of stuff to enjoy some of the vegetables you grow yourself. You just got to try it. Start with a bush, start with carrots, start with something at home and experiment, and you'll find that the stuff you grow yourself it's got taste, and you'll remember as a kid, oh, that's what this used to taste like. Yeah,
very interesting. We're up against the top of the hour. We went a little bit over. Is there anything, Stan, that we didn't talk about that we needed to before
let me ask the boss. Holly, is there anything I forgot to talk about? She says.
Or this Tuesday, May 6th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, we are going to be taking your phone calls and hitting a few pieces of news. First piece of news I want to hit today is this: U.S. businesses are being destroyed faster than created. The American economy is less entrepreneurial now than at any point in the last 3 decades. That's the conclusion of a new study from the Brookings Institution, which looks at rates of new business creation and destruction since 1978. Not only that, but during the most recent 3 years of the study, 2009 to 2011, businesses were collapsing faster than they were being formed, which is a first in our country's history. It goes on to say that due to the national numbers, to look at the change in the metro levels to rural levels, to see the trends that are happening, is very frightening and worrisome, to say the least, since we know, I think it's 7 out of 10 jobs are created by small businesses, or 8 out of 10, but they are being hammered by regulations through Obamacare, the other regulations, and this is a trend we're seeing. We just talked last week, I believe, about how a few minority of Americans who are working are paying the share for 100 plus other million Americans who aren't working for whatever reason and receiving some sort of benefit. And we've talked about this at length with V and Steve and many people who all concur that this is, we're seeing the end of our economy. And I don't know if you saw this, Dad.
Well, before you go on, I just want to say this. I had a meeting with my health insurance provider. My health insurance is going to be canceled at the end of June, and we had to select another provider. And I said, there's just no way that we are going to involve ourselves in the Affordable Care Act or the marketplace or whatever they call that. And as I spoke to this representative, just very briefly, it became clear to me that the insurance industry has already been destroyed. It doesn't matter, for example, when I say it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter from a practical perspective. If you stay out of the Affordable Care Act and go with your own insurance provider, the damage to the insurance industry has already been done. There's no walking it back.
Not to change the subject, I too lose my health insurance in June as well. So I got to get a meeting with somebody and see if I can't find some policy that is affordable, that is not Obamacare. And
I just want to say, too, our premiums went up. Well, they more than doubled.
More than doubled?
More than doubled.
That's not bad in thinking about some of the people's stories I've heard, but that is very, harsh. IMF loan to Ukraine is in SDRs, not in U.S. dollars. This is the first that we know of a loan by the IMF headquartered in D.C., Washington, D.C., specifically a loan in SDR, special drawing rights, rather than the U.S. customary dollar. As with most policy changes from Washington, they ease changes into existence. This seems to be the first start of the use of SDRs. If this is the start of the use of SDRs, then in return, it is also the start in not using the U.S. dollar for IMF loans, which are essentially U.S. government loans. It goes on to talk about, we have to consider that the dollar is no longer sought after or considered valuable worldwide, and perhaps won't be of the same value during the course of the loan as it is today.
Well, folks, this is extremely important because we had mentioned this, we had talked about this, the entire agenda from Ukraine to Syria to Libya to the Middle East to China and Russia, of course, being the countries behind the proxies. In the BRICS nations, all of this, Iran, what we're seeing is the killing off of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. End of story. That's it.
And I'll say this, the BRICS nations, the more I think about this, they're not destroying the dollar. We've destroyed the dollar.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
They're setting up a fail-safe, so in case the dollar does collapse, it's not going to collapse, the whole world economically, that there will be some nations that are superpowers that will survive.
In all of the conversations that I hear talked about Benghazi, I don't hear the bigger picture discussed, and part of that bigger picture is the economic factor, which they're setting up. The globalists, the industrialists, whatever you want to call them, the Satanists, it doesn't matter. Whatever term you'd like to use, they're setting up they're setting us up to take. No, let me rephrase that so I'm technically accurate. Syria, of course, Benghazi, all of this in the larger scheme of things. This is all part and parcel to changing the geopolitical structure of the Middle East landscape, which will in turn deliberately change the way we do business. And, of course, it's the our process of killing the dollar. The criminal cabal within our government is actively out there killing the U.S. dollar. And that's robbing wealth from you, ladies and gentlemen, you, the average citizen. And it just kind of really gets to me sometimes when I see people saying, well, all Steve and V talk about, it sounds like an infomercial for gold and silver. Well, what else is there that's going to protect your wealth? Of course, right. Food and water and lead in the form of ammunition. But
they're trying to give advice to preserve your assets, and it can be done in many ways. Silver and gold aren't the only ones, but they're definitely convenient.
Most recognized, yeah.
And they're the ones that have been, known as money since the dawn of money history, I guess you'd say, from what I understand. But
wait, you know what? I'm going off script here too. Before I forget about this, folks, Butter D Zillion, if that name doesn't ring a bell to you, then you haven't listened to our program.
Long-term storage butter from American Travel Wholesale?
It's butter by the zillions. No, Butter D Zillion, fantastic researcher, of course, the blog. She was on our program here not too long ago talking about the death or the murder, perhaps, the strange circumstances of the death of Loretta Fuddy. Okay. And just to be clear about this, and I'm going to say this again because there's still some people who are attempting to create dissent where none exists and none ever existed. We, the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, are stand behind the cold case posse 100%. And support them 100% in their endeavors and in their. We could not do what they do. Of course, they are going after some criminal, everything on a criminal basis. We, of course, are looking at the historical and civil issue while they are actually going after the criminality with respect to Obama. And they do, knowing what I know today after talking with Butter D Zillion, who manages the Butter D Zillion blog that talks about the Fuddy mysterious circumstances about Loretta Fuddy. I will say this: the information that the cold case posse has and is preparing, and there are a lot of twists and turns. People say, "Well, where's this information everyone's talking about?" It's coming. Just be patient because it being familiar with investigations, and Joe, you know this. You think you've got things pretty well done and handled, and something arises, or things just you need to get something else, and it seems to keep evolving at times. Patience, but I do feel that it's going to come out here in the short term that their findings are going to be pretty earth-shaking, and as they put it, universe-shaking. I believe that. But watch for more information about the Fuddy case as well. I wanted to mention that before I forgot that.
Yeah, and I heard you say Benghazi, and I heard Chris Matthews, make an assessment saying it was just a Republican thing that they've turned into politics. We have a 14-second clip called "Blowing Off Benghazi."
Oh yeah, you got to hear this.
Here it is.
Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
This process has been a sideshow.
Benghazi happened a long time ago.
Dude, this was like 2 years ago. Do you have any regrets?
David, no. What is happening here, and it's stoked by the talk radio personalities in Fox News, is this alternatively...
Get past the Benghazi witch hunt.
Benghazi. You ask them what they had for breakfast, they say Benghazi.
This thing called Benghazi.
Benghazi. Will the Republicans ever shut up about Benghazi?
Well, it's a serious distraction at the very least.
Attempts to turn this into a scandal have failed.
They're whitewater, they're fake, trumped up thing that they want to go for.
Their old tried and true red herring on Benghazi.
It's like one notch more respectable than birtherism.
The other Benghazi
is #Benghazi.
Pushing these Benghazi conspiracy theories.
But it wasn't a conspiracy, and there aren't aliens in Area 51.
They're back to Benghazi.
With respect to Benghazi. Phony scandal, phony scandal, phony scandals.
Phony scandals. Phony scandals. Phony scandals. Benghazi.
Phony
Benghazi,
scandals.
Benghazi, Benghazi. Why aren't we talking about something else?
There you go. Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Why aren't we talking about something else?
I'm bleeding from my ears after that.
Oh, yeah, that's just for you.
You know, once again, four people died, 4 Americans died, but no one is talking about the 250,000 Syrians who were murdered, the men, women, and children who have been murdered, the tens of millions of people who have been displaced, Syrians. And we know now. Folks,
so what does that have to do with me?
Yeah. Well, you take a look at your future, because right now they are actually crucifying Christians.
Well, what would they do to Cleveland Indians fans? Because that's what I care about.
Oh, yeah. Boy, you're full of spunk tonight, aren't you?
No, I'm just messing around. No, it is crazy to see. We had the whole thing that it's been 2 years now where Benghazi came out, the ambassador Stevens died. I heard actually Chris Matthews say he made a decisive wrong decision, and that's what got him killed. That was a clip from today, I believe. I did not upload that. But
in a way, he's not exactly 100% wrong, but I'm not going to get into that.
But the cover-up, the blaming it on a YouTube video that never existed,
it existed, and
it existed with what? How many views? Even
Oh, yeah. And Montegraph, who called into the show, did a fantastic job. I have to commend him, regardless of what you think of his other videos. I haven't seen his other videos, but the ones with respect to the he actually conducted. It was strange how it happened. We were conducting a parallel investigation with respect to the fonts I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it. I do have a report coming out on this, but the bottom line is a lot of his findings and our findings are identical. And this does point to Stanley Incorporated. It does point to John O. Brennan, the head of the CIA, in terms of the origination of the video. But folks, we had Robert Tosh Plumley on and last week, and if you listen to that broadcast, 90 minutes, it was a very passionate broadcast. But he posted on Facebook 11 questions, and of course, he in particular, we just were there, I suppose. He hired the Attorney General, the State Department, the Pentagon. The Pentagon, by the way, was reportedly really, really upset with that interview. But here's my only question, and if you would answer, not you, but if this question was indeed answered authoritatively and legitimately and truthfully, I believe you'd have a revolt on your hands. Where was Obama during what was the Watergate tapes? 18.5-minute gap? 18.5 hours.
Well, there was an article yesterday. What Obama did on September 11th, 2012.
Okay.
Now, it gets into National Security Council spokesman Tommy Vitor admitted to Fox News' Brett Baer that President Obama was not in the White House Situation Room on the night of September 11th, 2012.
Yeah, we know where he wasn't.
Dude, that was like 2 years ago, in which Islamic terrorists killed Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans, he said. This administration was a long time coming, in part because mainstream media reporters refrained from asking. In fact, it was not until May 19th, 2013, 8 months after the attack, that a newsman asked a White House spokesman what Obama did that night. The newsman was Chris Wallace of Fox News. And I might add that it wasn't until May 19th, 2013. Many people were asking about what the president was doing, what support they issued for the attack that was happening, that they knew about well ahead of time. And then they turned around and lied about why it happened, how it happened, and not only that, they lied about what was attacked. The only thing they didn't lie about are the people that were killed. They lied about why they were killed. They lied, and now they're saying it's, the next birtherism. But it goes on to say that they don't know where he was, but it gives us sort of a timeline that he had a phone call. Obama had a phone call, or a meeting, with Panetta and Dempsey, and Obama was in the White House for a pre-scheduled meeting. They discussed the attack. They authorized, Obama, Dempsey, and Panetta authorized to take relevant steps, leaving specifics up to Panetta and Dempsey. Then they had no further contact with the president that evening, none at all.
Okay, and there it is, folks. If you and I will throw this out there, if people knew what he was doing, no further contact with Obama. If people knew, you're muted, sir.
What's the difference if he was playing golf or watching TV or playing with his kids or on a
there's
flight
yeah, and that's a good point. It's my contention.
He was still absent.
Well, correct. And there's two parts to this. What was he doing specifically? And I think that will tell you more about Obama than anything else. But the equally important aspect of this, if he was absent, who then was the commander-in-chief or making the decisions that evening? Now, let me just toss out a couple of things to you folks. One, and write this down or keep this in the back of your mind. Department of Defense, State Department liaison. Okay, just keep that in the back of your mind, or you're going to be hearing about this. Also, and I just want to let you know how, to understand how big this is. Before, I'm just going over some notes.
And I have a story after you're done on Syria, which is relevant.
Okay, well, let me just say this, and I'll just close this out, because I am doing another series of reports about Benghazi. We've got to keep tension on the line. We've got to demand answers. And, folks, please remember, now this has been documented, that the terrorists, the proxy terrorists, or the terrorists, the Muslim terrorists that attacked the CIA compound in Benghazi.
Or protesters, whichever narrative you believe.
Well, they knew the exact location of the safe room where Stevens and the security team sought shelter.
Right, which is not in the actual CIA compound itself.
Correct. This was a very well orchestrated, very well organized, a military operation. And I must emphasize, the attack was a military operation, using military weaponry, using military signals. If you, this was reported, by the way, from the late Florida House of Representatives Congressperson Bill Young. He met with a diplomatic agent who was on the ground there, David Ubben, at Walter Reed. This was last summer. In fact, both of them, the congressman and Ubben, were both patients at Walter Reed. After Young's death in mid-October, his widow, Beverly Young, had released the information that he had gained from this individual. But he had emphasized that this was a very top-level, highly sophisticated military type of operation, and the attackers had knowledge of nearly everything in that compound. They knew where the gasoline was, they knew where the generators were, they knew where the safe room was. They knew a lot more than they should have ever known. And don't forget, there are two other people involved in this narrative here that we need to take a look at. One is Ben Rhodes. don't forget that Ben Rhodes, in addition to being in the White House, well, he's in the White House. His brother is, of course, with CBS News. Do you think there's any type of conflict there? Need I ask? But we can move on. Like I said, watch for additional information. I believe I've got some pretty solid information from which that additional questions will be required to be answered. I really do, at least in my view.
All right, I'm going to hit this article, then we'll take some phone calls. The Obama administration has offered and is giving $27 million to Syrian rebels, additional help to Syrian rebels. The Syrian Opposition Council offices in the U.S. will become formal diplomatic missions after receiving approval from the Obama administration on Monday. This comes ahead of high-level talks between the U.S. and opposition leaders in Washington. The administration first recognized the Syrian Opposition Council as the legitimate representative of Syria in December of 2012, but did not suspend the Syrian embassy representing the Assad government until this March. The opposition offices were considered informal liaison offices until Monday's announcement, where they will become foreign diplomatic missions under U.S. law, the Associated Press reports.
Interesting.
Al-Qaeda is the recognized government declared by the United States while giving them millions of our tax dollars. The U.S. assistance to opposition groups in Syria has totaled $278 million to date.
That's the that's the above board money. Of course, there's a black operations budget that's involved here, and once again, you know, I don't know about you folks, but when I sit and I watch, for example, the Sunday morning television shows, you see people like George Will and Britt Hume sit there and talk. They're stuffed shirts. They're almost programmed. I watch and I'm thinking, do they the condescension that they have for the truth, or the patriots who are out there attempting to uncover the truth behind an issue, that in this case Benghazi, to me, is absolutely unforgivable. It really is.
Yes, it is. Let's go to the phone. So we have a lot of people lined up. We're going to go to area code 267 first. 267, we're coming to you now. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how you doing, fellas? God bless.
God bless you too. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, this is Eric from Philadelphia. It's been a while since I've called in. Wanted to talk a little bit about vaccines today. Work for an organization that does data collecting, and I was at a conference last week over at Philadelphia, and they're really pushing hard on these mandates and blacklisting any providers that don't want to move along with that. As far as the flu vaccinations, this is real. They spend about 2 to 3 hours just talking about Christians and how they really want to target those individuals to push this vaccination on them, and it's really crazy. I was invited. I just felt like speaking up there, but I was just like, let me just record something. So I might be sending you guys some inside info, and but the awakening is happening because they're definitely fearing the anti-vaccine movement. So that was a big topic of discussion. But it was just amazing how they would talk to the providers and like, hey, if you're any of your patients don't want to vaccinate, you don't have to fill out their soccer forms, none of their forms to participate in sports. They just basically they're trying to push this on everyone, and they don't care about the outcomes at all. So yeah, I just wanted to tell everyone that
even
though
it's not the law, for example, and when you say providers, are you talking about, well, for example, if you had it's a CVS Pharmacy is a big pharmacy across the country, I believe. If CVS says, no, we're not going to participate in your vaccination program, is that what you mean by providers?
Yeah, so the providers, the doctors' offices, basically this conference had all of the local hospitals and doctors' offices. They were doing like this big mind control thing, basically saying, hey, look, whoever doesn't vaccinate, even employees, just start eliminating those employees. So just a warning to anyone that works in the healthcare field, especially in Philadelphia, they're going to start weeding you out. If you don't want to vaccinate, that's fine. They're going to fire you. I have audio from that conference, and it's really scary.
They've been doing this throughout the healthcare industry for the last few years now. We've had a few listeners that have called in and told us that they've been given a decision and were told they have a choice. They either get the vaccination as employees or they lose their job. And most have decided not to get the vaccination. And, this is going to extend beyond the healthcare industry pretty soon.
Yeah, and they're really pushing the mandates. But what really blew my mind is they're really targeting, because what I usually do is just I look at those exemptions for religious reasons or Christians that don't vaccinate, and I actually gather that data, and there's a big database with all of this information. So I have whatever information you guys need if you need to validate that. But it's real. They're collecting data. They know who's Christian, who's not vaccinating, and they specifically want to target and push this on those individuals that refuse vaccinations for religious purposes or philosophical reasons. These people are having seizures, respiratory complications, but they don't really care, because if a doctor's not on board, they'll blacklist that doctor, and they're pretty clear about that. So.
Anything that you can get as a scholar in terms of hard copy documentation, first person documentation.
I'll give you audio. I recorded most of the conference, so I have audio documentations. I have access to the database that I update myself as well. I'm not proud of doing what I do. Definitely praying about another line of work. But, I am a watchman, and I'm waking up the people as best as I can in the process of transitioning to some other type of employment. But the stuff that you guys are sounding an alarm on, it's the real deal.
Thank you for letting us know that, and certainly we'll take whatever audio that you would have in any format that you could possibly forward to us. We'd really certainly appreciate that. We will go through it, and report back to the people, our listeners, as well as play certain parts that we're authorized to, depending on how what the situation is. Something that we could talk about off air, caller.
Okay, definitely. I'll forward that over, get it together, try to have it to you guys by tomorrow. But yeah, don't vaccinate if. Don't let anyone push this on you. Don't compromise, because it's not worth it.
Absolutely.
People are dropping seizures, respiratory complications. Even the pharmaceutical companies were in there talking about the Tamiflu, what they give you for the flu, the medicine that they give you was unhealthy. So it's just everyone's making money off of it, and they really don't care about your well-being at all. So I'm sick of it, and yeah.
Absolutely, and we look forward to getting that information, and we want to thank you for your call. We're going to move on to another call. God bless you, and have a good one.
God bless.
To the international line. Let's go to the international line. Joe?
Here we go. International caller, possibly country code 13.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, this is Constance from France.
We recognize your voice. With the first hello, I knew it was Constance. So it's great to hear your voice, Constance. How have you been?
Oh, I would love to congratulate you. You have a fantastic show. I listen regularly, and I must tell you, thank you for all the information that you have been giving. It's fantastic. Earlier, you were talking about Benghazi, and I would just like to say about Benghazi, we have a lot of misinformation about Benghazi. But what nobody has ever been speaking about, because it was not only the U.S., but it was also France was in the intervention, and also Britain. But we never hear about, they never give information about what was the exact involvement of France. Was France also had black operations in this death of your ambassador, Mr. Stevens? Nobody has ever spoken about that. And we also know that France and Britain are actually at present heavily involved in Syria also, but nobody is speaking about this. And also in our newspapers, nobody is talking about what is going on, about the Christians, about all the deaths that is happening. But I'm not surprised, because our journalism here in Europe, especially here in France, is controlled by heavily influenced by the United Nations. So we don't get the reports that, if we don't go into the other medias and the other sites, we don't get the reports that are coming out. But it's very funny about Benghazi. We never hear about French involvement. What was France's involvement in Benghazi? We never hear about that.
Well, Constance, you raised a very good point. We had talked, in fact, I had written about this, and Michael Reagan from Building on a Kernel of Truth, that was published back in September, I believe it was, of 2012, wrote about this as well. The British and the French, they all had interest in the warehouses and the storage depots, and also in the training and the logistics aspects of weapons and personnel all across northern Africa. So this was not just merely the United States. This was a multinational.
It was a coalition. And it was also a black operation. But nobody is speaking about the black operation. And what happened, as you said before, when you were talking about Benghazi, these people were heavily trained. They were special, and they were specially operators. It was not, something that was a band, a gang that got together and decided to do this. It was practiced somewhere. They knew the layout of they had the plans. They had been practicing for this, and it was too well organized for just to be a last-minute idea. And when they were ordered to stand down, what did France and Britain do at that time? I would like to have those answers, because we also stood down and didn't do nothing about it, and we were very close.
Interesting question, and I do believe that the United States was the people, the cabal within the United States government led the French and the Brits, the Saudis, Qatar, and so on in this operation. They spearheaded the operation. So, the stand-down order, you're right. And that begs the question as well, just talking about the stand-down order, if in fact Obama was not, we know where he was not, and that's in the Situation Room, then who was acting commander-in-chief at the time? Because that's what we have, don't we? We've got an acting commander-in-chief.
Yes, we do. But everything about Obama, we still don't know who he is. We still don't know where he's from. We still don't know anything about his family background. We know nothing about Michelle. and he is influenced. All he does is play golf and goes from country to country and from country to country, and we have no intel about his past, about what is he planning to do, the future. What is going to happen with Obama when he finishes his presidential term? Will we have his documents after his presidency? I don't know what is going to happen, but it is very concerning, the direction that we are going, because here in Europe things are very, very, very bad, and our statistics for work and for unemployment are really devastating all over Europe. So I think that is all I wanted to say. And I wish you a very good evening, and thank you very much, and I enjoy your show.
God bless you, Constance. Our foreign correspondents are from Bordeaux, France. God bless you, Constance. God bless you so much.
Goodbye now. Bye-bye. Au revoir.
Right. It's great to have, she's just a marvelous lady, and of course,
it's been a while since we've heard from her, and glad to hear her calling.
Actually, she's seen some of her postings on Facebook. Very timely. Very timely. Go ahead.
All right, let's get in another call here. We're going to go to area code 720. 720, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, I think that's me.
That's you.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. This is Ricky. I think we've talked before. I was writing a letter today, and I kind of felt like the Holy Spirit was leading me, and so I was wondering if I could just read it. It probably is only about a minute long.
Sure.
And
Go ahead.
It's kind of compacted of what's going on. So it's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. In Genesis, the seed means the DNA. Our government is messing with our DNA. They are mixing it even in the vegetables and the fruits. It's GMO food. Also, they are mixing it in people. As in the days of Noah, there was no rainbow. We lived to be a lot older. That is the spirit of the power of the air, Ephesians 2:2. That is now at work trying to make that happen. In Revelation, it says anyone who takes the mark cannot be saved. My understanding is that the chip changes our DNA. We are no longer his creation, and we are working towards Satan's goal. Also, in the end of days, Noah's evil filled the earth from the offspring of the fallen angels. We are now at the cusp of the end of the age. Chemtrails might be the reason we lose our rainbow. We, as human beings, are not intelligent enough to do all the things like mixing DNA and smartphones and etc. It has been taught to us by the fallen angels. Do you realize everything has changed in the last 100 years? We have been here 2,000 years since Christ walked the earth, and now everything is moving so fast, and education is at your fingertips, the Internet. Daniel 12:4. Behold, I have told you these things before they come to be. We are struggling against the powers. Ephesians 6:12, and I know you guys know all this stuff, but I don't know. I was trying to compact it. I felt like the Holy Spirit moved me, but without this last verse, it means nothing. His grace is significant to cover all sins, and we must repent to be clean. And also, of course, we must accept Jesus Christ as our Savior, our one and only way to be saved, and then repent. Repentance is so important. And then turning away from our deeds. Anyway, I was moved by the Holy Spirit to tell you that, and I know you guys probably know that, and your audience probably knows that, but it's kind of compacted, and that's what I had to say.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we are. Thank you so much for that. You encapsulated quite a bit in a very short amount of time. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your call, Rick.
And thanks for reading that.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I appreciate everything you guys do, and I am just so overwhelmed with what you're bringing to the public. I love you guys. So thank you so much too.
God bless you. You have a good night.
Stay tuned for tomorrow night with Bill Salas. My goodness, Bill, that's going to be an incredible topic about Psalm 93 and about the Israelistine book. By the way, Greg, if you're listening, I just saw your email a little bit ago. I do owe you a telephone call, Greg, if you're listening. I apologize. I just happened to see your email, and I owe you a phone call. We'll talk tomorrow. Along with that, what was the old World War II? The man with a long mustache peeks out the window. I don't know. Go ahead, Joe.
We're going to take one more call, and I think this is from Alabama, 205. 205, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Hey, this is Ken in Birmingham. Guys, it's always great to have Stan Deo on, and I appreciate his information about EMP and about the metal garbage cans there to try to shield your electronics. But I've been thinking, is it really wise to try to save a cell phone? Because even if you save your cell phone, if there is a bad EMP blast, wouldn't that knock off all of the cell phone towers, all the transmitters? And cell phones can't talk to one another without a transmitter site in between them, correct?
Yeah, I believe you are correct, and it's funny you say that because my father was off air when Stan was talking about that. He was going to ask about the cell towers, and we never ended up doing that. And that's something we can ask him next week, but logic would, you'd think that because an EMP, we're not prepared for an EMP, the power lines aren't even grounded properly, that the cell phone towers wouldn't work at all.
Right. I certainly cannot speak to the cell phone towers or the cell phone industry, but I seriously doubt that they've done much to harden their towers from an EMP attack. So it would seem like to me the thing you might would be one of these handheld radios like you can buy at Walmart. I believe they're called FRS, or Family Radio Service. They have advertised distances of something like 15, 20 miles under ideal conditions. It seems like to me you might want some of those, and maybe other relatives and family members to have some, so that perhaps maybe you might be able to communicate with each other if you needed to.
Absolutely.
That or perhaps an old CB radio. I haven't had a CB radio since the late 80s. I need to get back into that and get a CB radio maybe, but something have as a backup for communication. Just a thought. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, and it's great ideas. From what I understand, analog will be the only way you can communicate after that. So going back to the old systems that were used during that time would make sense. And caller, you closed us out tonight. I want to thank you for the call. We're going to have to let you go.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.
That'll do it, folks. You've invested 3 hours of your time. We thank you very much for hanging with us. We really appreciate everything that you do, your emails, your letters. We read them all. As I said, Greg, you'll be hearing from me tomorrow. Joe?
Tomorrow, Bill Salas. He'll be on with us the first 2 hours. Don't miss that show. Until then, stay safe. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.